Chapter 208. Yi Feishue took a deep breath and stared at Chen Hao. He deliberately spoke slowly so that his mouth could be more distinct. He asked, "Who recommended you to me?" "Senior Dongfang Ting. What's your relationship with her? When did you meet? After entering the star-picking sect, what did you do?" Yi Feishue asked several questions in a row. Chen Hao answered smoothly without any mistakes. This made Yi Feishue, who was in despair, gradually become excited. Although Tan Ming and the others, who were also sealed, could not hear what Yi Feishue said, they could hear Chen Hao's words. Obviously, this seal was only a one-way seal. It was also because Ito Ta was afraid that people would affect his possession. Is this true? How did you do it?" After a few minutes, Yi Feishue finally confirmed that the person standing in front of her was Chen Hao and not Ito Ta. Her voice was filled with excitement and surprise. "I don't know the details. He entered my mind and wanted to destroy me. But halfway through, his soul seemed to be injured for some reason, and he was controlled by me. Senior sister, now the array has lost Ito Ta's control. After a while, it should be loose. You can try to break it." Chen Hao said. "I can't break it. I can't break it." This immortal binding formation is an extremely famous demonic formation of the demonic path. It can completely seal and suppress the energy of cultivators of the same level. The energy in my body can't be activated at all. I can only wait for the energy of this formation to run out. Yi Feishue glanced at the energy crystals that were still emitting a bright blue light on the altar and said, "We can only wait. Don't touch those energy crystals. Once they explode, not only you, but all of us will be killed by the energy. At most 3 days, the energy should run out." Chen Hao slightly frowned and pondered for a moment. Then he nodded. At this moment, Chen Hao's spiritual power and elemental energy had already merged into one. Once there was any fluctuation, it would be swallowed by Ito Ta's nascent soul. Fortunately, the nascent soul had lost Ito Ta's control. It just floated in Chen Hao's dantian, and did not take the initiative to attack. The demonic aura contained within the nascent soul also caused Chen Hao's energy to automatically avoid it. Otherwise, Chen Hao definitely wouldn't have any energy left at this moment. Under such circumstances, if Chen Hao encountered an accident while trying to break the formation, he would be in real danger. Therefore, Chen Hao did not say much. Instead, he sat down cross-legged. Now that everyone was safe, he would try to deal with the nascent soul in his dantian. However, Chen Hao understood that the treasure-hunting sword spirit had turned into a coward. It was definitely the work of the mysterious existence in his mind. Since he did this, there must be a reason. Therefore, Chen Hao was sure that there must be a way. Chen Hao slowly immersed his mind into his body and carefully moved towards his dantian. This was a pure thought without the slightest bit of energy. The moment Chen Hao's mind merged into his dantian, something that shocked Chen Hao happened. The space between his eyebrows suddenly throbbed violently. A weak rune containing a trace of strange energy slowly condensed in his dantian, as if it was deliberately demonstrating for Chen Hao. After the rune was completed, it slowly covered the nascent soul. The moment the rune completely enveloped the nascent soul, the majestic demonic aura emitted by the nascent soul suddenly seemed to be blocked, and there was no longer a trace of it escaping. What surprised Chen Hao even more was that Chen Hao's mind was completely connected to the rune. There was indeed no demonic aura in his dantian, but Chen Hao's mind could clearly sense the rolling demonic energy in his nascent soul. At the same time, Chen Hao also had a trace of enlightenment in his heart. He was clear about the mystery and use of the rune. He wants me to refine this nascent soul bit by bit. Chen Hao was shocked. With a move of his mind, the rune suddenly shone with a bright light. Like pulling silk from a cocoon, it magically extracted a wisp of demonic energy from the nascent soul. This wisp of demonic energy immediately began to dance in Chen Hao's dantian. But because it was too little and too weak, although the energy was of a higher level, it could no longer pose a threat to Chen Hao's energy. Amazing! A rune that only contains a trace of energy can temporarily suppress the nascent soul and divide the energy of the nascent soul. Doesn't this mean, if I can comprehend this energy, I can refine it bit by bit? My tempering speed will only get faster and faster. Motherfucker, this nascent soul is like a mountain of energy. Chen Hao was excited. He was really excited. He had become a pauper and still owed a debt of 100,000 elixirs. What did he lack the most? Elixirs, energy. And now, his dantian was equivalent to having the energy of a peak nascent soul master for him to refine. Hiss hiss hiss. Immediately, Chen Hao focused his mind and activated the energy in his dantian without any worries. It wrapped around the tiny wisp of energy of the nascent soul and began to refine and comprehend it crazily. 2 hours passed and there was no progress. In the blink of an eye, 6 hours had passed. But what made Chen Hao depressed was that no matter how Chen Hao refined that wisp of energy, it did not break down in the slightest. And Chen Hao was also unable to comprehend the mysteries of this energy. After a day, Chen Hao screamed in his mind. His whole body was covered in goosebumps, and his hair was standing on end. After a day of crazy refining, there was no progress at all. When Chen Hao was about to be driven crazy, he could only give up temporarily. He opened his eyes and suddenly stood up. He paced back and forth on the altar with his eyebrows tightly knitted. Yi Feishue and the rest were baffled. The energy crystals that supported the formation had already dimmed a lot. Evidently, it was similar to Yi Feishue's estimation. In 3 days, the immortal binding formation would collapse on its own. Chen Hao, what's wrong? Yi Feishue shouted at Chen Hao. She shouted a few times, but Chen Hao looked at her as if he did not see her. His eyes were empty and his eyebrows were tightly knitted. After more than 10 minutes, Chen Hao sat down cross-legged again. His eyebrows relaxed as he swallowed a large amount of elixirs, and once again immersed himself in cultivation. I've tried every method, including merging with the heavens and earth, but there's still no progress. What's the problem? Chen Hao thought to himself as he immersed his mind into his dantian again. Calm down, calm down. Just as Chen Hao was about to get goosebumps again, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit suddenly sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Calm down. There's no point in being anxious. This is a higher level of energy than the origin energy, the 5 elements, and the yin and yang energy of the heavens and earth. If you want to refine it, you have to comprehend this energy. Now you've already comprehended the 5 elements and the yin and yang of the heavens and earth. You're only a step away from comprehending it. However, although it's just a step, the difference is like heaven and earth. Especially since you're still a martial sage. How can it be so easy for you to comprehend it? Back then, you were able to comprehend the 5 elements and the yin and yang of the heavens and earth because of the power of the inheritance. Now, you can only rely on yourself. Not to mention a day, even if you take a month, 2 months, or even half a year, it'll be good enough if you can comprehend it. It can't be? It's so difficult to comprehend the energy? That's the truth. Comprehending the 5 elements and the yin and yang of the heavens and earth will allow you to reach the divine realm without any barriers. However, when you reach the 9th grade divine realm and want to step into the golden core realm, it won't be so simple anymore. At that time, you'll have to rely on yourself to comprehend the barriers. Of course, if you encounter an opportunity, that's an exception. However, although the opportunity inheritance is good, unless you can continuously obtain it, otherwise, if no opportunity inheritance appears, your ability to comprehend the barriers will not be as solid and reliable as relying on your own comprehension. Especially towards the end, it's more practical for you to try to break the formation. It's a pity to waste so many magic crystal stones just like that. They're worth a lot. Chen Hao frowned slightly. The words of the treasure-hunting sword spirit were perhaps just casual words to the treasure-hunting sword spirit, but to Chen Hao, it was like a blow to the head, instantly waking him up. Eager for quick success. From the beginning of his cultivation until now, it had been smooth sailing for him. He had not encountered any difficult barriers at all. Even the essence of the wind attribute did not take long for him to comprehend. It was this kind of easy situation that caused Chen Hao's confidence to swell like never before. He thought that he would be able to comprehend the energy contained in the nascent soul very quickly. However, after more than a day, after using all his skills, there was no progress at all. This caused him to lose his calm. The more it was like this, the more difficult it was for him to comprehend. Virtuous like water, unmoved by honor or disgrace, I've unknowingly fallen into the wrong path. Phew. Chen Hao let out a long breath and slowly opened his eyes. His mind had already become calm and peaceful, without the slightest impatience. Chen Hao. Yi Feishue saw Chen Hao stand up again and look at her. She instantly opened her mouth and asked again, her eyes filled with confusion. Senior sister, I'll try to break the formation. What made Yi Feishue feel slightly comforted was that this time, Chen Hao finally saw her speak. Don't. This is a formation formed by a nascent soul expert. Unless you can comprehend the mysteries of the formation, otherwise, you won't be able to withstand it. Yi Feishue hurriedly said. I'm a little good at formations. I'll try. I won't break it by force. Chen Hao said with a slight smile. After he finished speaking, he directly walked towards the formation runes that surrounded Yi Feishue and the energy crystals that were embedded within. Be careful. This formation will collapse in at most 2 days. Don't try to force it. And at this moment, the nascent soul had already been suppressed by the runes in his dantian. For the time being, it couldn't cause any waves. Chen Hao could be considered to have completely returned to normal. He also didn't have to worry about his energy being swallowed up after activating it. If an unexpected situation were to occur, he could also block it. With a thought, Chen Hao's perception began to spread out. The separated mental strength immediately began to probe into the formation like tiny tentacles, trying to sense the mysteries within. His mind was clear and abnormally agile. Chen Hao, who calmed down, was pleasantly surprised to find that his soul perception seemed to have increased by a full 30%. Obviously, this was the increase brought about by the destruction of most of Itota's soul energy. Second update. Requesting monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Thank you. Chapter 209. The Immortal Binding Formation was one of the most powerful demonic formations of the demonic path. Once a cultivator was trapped, their energy would be completely confined. Unless the cultivator's realm was far above the person who set up the formation, it was impossible to destroy it by force. Otherwise, Yi Feishue would not have been unable to fight back. Strange, this formation is so simple? Chen Hao's perception slowly merged into it. What surprised him was that such a powerful formation was unexpectedly simple. He could easily comprehend a layer of the Upanishads contained in the runes. It seemed to be far less complicated than some of the powerful formations he had encountered in the ruins. No wonder, it was just a small formation that isolated senior sister Ye's voice. It exists independently, and is not part of the Immortal Binding Formation. When Chen Hao's mind broke through layer by layer and completely comprehended the entire formation, he finally understood what was going on. Open. Chen Hao locked onto the formation eye. The fused energy immediately followed a strange path and penetrated it. With a kacha sound, one of the runes around an energy crystal was broken. Hiss. Immediately, the layer of blue light that covered Yi Feishue's body disappeared by itself. Under the slightly surprised gaze of Yi Feishue and the others, Chen Hao's figure was like lightning. The blade in his hand flashed, and in a moment, the crystals embedded in the runes on the ground were dug out one by one and put into the storage space. Senior sister, I will help them break the outer seal first. These are all individual formations, so they are easy to break. Okay. Yi Feishue replied. At this moment, her voice was no longer blocked, but her body was still bound by the immortal binding rope and could not move at all. Kacha! Kacha! The sound kept coming. Chen Hao, who had already comprehended the mysteries of the sound-sealing formation, was like a hot knife cutting through butter. He was as fast as lightning as he harvested the magic crystals in the runes. Then, Chen Hao walked to the corpse of Itota, who was sitting cross-legged. With a poof sound, he stabbed the small blade into his forehead. The energy surged, and suddenly the head exploded. Clang! A demonic blade that was emitting a terrifying aura and blue light fell to the ground. Chen Hao put it away neatly, and at the same time he also put the several storage rings in Ito's hands into his bag. For Chen Hao to do this, everyone, including Yi Feishue, could imagine that someone like Itota, who roamed the cultivation world and specialized in killing and robbing, must have a lot of wealth. However, they didn't have any objections. After all, if it wasn't for Chen Hao, they would probably have become essence pills by now. Yi Feishue, in particular, would probably be even more miserable. After doing all this, if Chen Hao wanted to collect more magic crystals, he would have to break the immortal binding formation. Chen Hao did not stop. With his powerful perception, he began to comprehend the mysteries of the immortal binding formation. However, as soon as his spiritual tentacles merged into it, a terrifying devouring power directly devoured Chen Hao's spiritual power, forcibly cutting off Chen Hao's perception. What a powerful formation! Could it be that I can't even detect it? Chen Hao was shocked. How was he supposed to comprehend it? It felt like the nascent soul in his dantian. Any energy fluctuation would be instantly devoured by it. Is it not possible? Seeing Chen Hao pondering, Yi Feishue asked, "If it's not possible, then don't force yourself. It won't take long for the energy of this formation to be exhausted." The immortal binding formation is one of the most powerful formations used by the Devil Dao to deal with us. Countless sect disciples have died because of it. The power of the Devil Dao is very strong. There are a total of 999 small formations, and each of them has a magical effect. At this moment, although Ito Ta is not activating it, it's not very possible for you to break it. Nothing is impossible. Senior sister, you don't have to worry. Anyway, I have nothing to do. Breaking the formation is also a kind of cultivation. Hearing Yi Feishue's words, Chen Hao's eyes shone with a cold and resolute light. With a thought, Chen Hao's mind began to undergo a strange change. A rune formed entirely from spiritual power slowly formed in Chen Hao's mind and enveloped Chen Hao's spiritual power. This rune was exactly the same as the rune used to suppress the nascent soul. Although it was slow and jerky, the texture and profoundness were exactly the same. Gradually, when the rune was formed, Chen Hao's spiritual tentacles, under the protection of the rune, slowly probed into the immortal binding formation. "Suppress for me." With a loud shout in his mind, Chen Hao's spiritual tentacles successfully broke through the formation. Instantly, the sound of thousands of demons roaring and roaring was forcibly suppressed by the rune. Voila voila. When his mind came into contact with a small formation, Chen Hao saw a majestic and terrifying black aura, like a waterfall from the ninth heaven, surging with monstrous demonic aura. Strands of aura and demonic aura transformed into demonic shadows, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they pounced on Chen Hao's mind. While Chen Hao was shocked, a mysterious change suddenly rose and sealed off the escape route of Chen Hao's mind. Like catching a turtle in a jar, it did not even let go of the rune protecting Chen Hao's mind. What a powerful formation! Layers of illusions ever-changing and unable to devour me. It can actually change between countless formations, making me unable to comprehend it. Chen Hao sensed with rapt attention and exclaimed in shock. The formation that surrounded his mind was constantly changing, without any pattern. The demonic aura became denser and denser, emitting a mountain-like pressure. Chen Hao was certain that without the protection of the mysterious rune, not to mention breaking the formation, even he himself would be trapped in the formation, unable to extricate himself. It seems that it's impossible to comprehend it in a short period of time. I'm afraid that before I can comprehend it, the energy crystals supporting the formation will run out. Chen Hao's mind spun rapidly as he thought to himself. His plan to collect all the demonic crystals was obviously impossible. In just a few minutes, the scene that Chen Hao's mind sensed had changed by 999 different formations. Evidently, it was as Yi Feishue had said. The immortal binding formation was a whole formed by 999 small formations, and was extremely complicated. Since I can't get it, I'll just have to comprehend it properly. At least if I meet someone from the demonic path, it'll be easier. Chen Hao focused his mind and immersed himself in the sensing formation, under the cover of the mysterious rune. No matter how the demonic aura rampaged, he remained unmoved. The rapidly changing formations constantly flashed in Chen Hao's mind. After a cycle of 999 formations, the order of their operation would change strangely, but this was no longer important. Chen Hao would capture the aura of any formation that he encountered. Although the changes only occurred in an instant, Chen Hao's calculation, deduction, and multitasking abilities that far surpassed ordinary people allowed him to maintain the same state of mind as when he saw the formations last time. This feeling was like comprehending 999 different formations at the same time, advancing through the 999 different paths. Although it was chaotic and disorderly, Chen Hao had forcibly sorted out a clear path forward. Time passed by minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, more than a day had passed. Kacha! Bang! Kacha kacha! Pung pung! Finally, the energy crystals that were inlaid on the altar began to shatter one by one like beans being fried. The moment the energy was exhausted, the crystals began to shatter one after another. Pung! In an instant, the sealing boundary that enveloped the entire altar burst like a bubble. Hiss hiss! The immortal binding rope that imprisoned Yi Feishue and the others, having lost the support of its energy, instantly dissipated. Ao ao ao. At this moment, the powerful earth demons that were originally surrounding the ring suddenly roared crazily and rushed towards the altar with a rumble. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the people who had been freed were both excited and frightened as they activated their protective aura. Chen Hao, who had abruptly opened his eyes, was no exception. Kill! Yi Feishue, who had been freed, immediately shouted coldly. Everyone was also suppressing a belly full of anger. In an instant, the densely packed powerful earth demons became the target of everyone's frenzied venting after surviving a calamity. Rumble! A terrifying explosion, a dazzling sword light, and an unparalleled aura completely erupted. Yi Feishue's figure was like lightning. She specifically chose the powerful earth demons that the others could not resist and left the rest to the others. She, who was filled with guilt, took on the role of a firefighter. Although Chen Hao and the others were excited, they also felt the arrival of extreme danger. The others would more or less show signs of panic, but Chen Hao, facing the terrifying and powerful earth demons, did not panic. A fatal disaster was right in front of him, but he could still remain calm, and the power that erupted was even more powerful. This kind of calmness and ease, where the more dangerous the situation, the more powerful the potential that erupted was. This was not something that could be achieved through cultivation. This Chen Hao's future achievements will definitely be beyond imagination. He is not afraid in the face of danger. The more dangerous the situation, the more powerful the battle strength that erupts. I really don't know, at such a young age, with such a cultivation, how many battles on the edge of life and death has he experienced? Even I can't do this. Yi Feishue's divine sense enveloped the entire area around the altar, paying attention to everyone's every move. Chen Hao had already given her a lot of surprises, but at this moment, she was still shocked. At this moment, Chen Hao's mind was completely immersed in the battle. 9 flying daggers flashed and danced around his body. All kinds of strange secret techniques made every part of his body become the fiercest and most violent attack. The martial god realm demonic beasts were like tofu in front of him, unable to withstand a single blow. Yi Feishue did not even need to attack the martial god realm demonic beasts that had reached the 7th, 8th, and even 9th grade. Their powerful battle strength was far beyond the martial god realm experts like Tan Ming. Although the efficiency of killing the earth demons was lower than that of the golden core realm experts, their speed was faster than that of the golden core realm disciples. 2 hours passed by. 4 hours passed by. The area around the altar was covered with the corpses of the earth demons. Blood flowed like a river, like purgatory. The number of earth demons finally decreased, but at this moment, the golden core realm and martial god realm disciples had already stopped fighting. Under Yi Feishue's protection, they sat cross-legged and recovered their cultivation. On the other hand, Chen Hao, who had an abnormal physical strength and vigorous energy, was still like a demon god, full of energy and killing crazily. Yi Feishue could no longer describe the astonishment in her heart. At this moment, Yi Feishue finally understood why Dong Fangting admired Chen Hao so much. The first part is more. Looking for recommendation votes. Monthly votes. Thank you. Chapter 210. Time flew by like an arrow, and in the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Star-picking sect, outer sect disciples arena peak. Early in the morning, Nearly 10,000 disciples had gathered. Almost all of the outer sect disciples were present as long as they were in the star-picking sect. In the short span of a month, the junior, middle, and senior rankings had undergone shocking changes. Some unfamiliar names, like in previous years, rose up as dark horses in the last 10 days before the opening of the 7-star grotto heaven. What was different from a month ago was that the challenges were no longer free. Instead, it was a showdown between the top disciples of each rank. The top 10 disciples of each rank were the only ones who could be challenged. The 10 elders of the star-picking sect sat on the rostrum as they assumed the role of the judges. There are so many rising prodigies this year. Looks like our star-picking sect's luck is here. The one who spoke was the 4th elder, the elder of the 4th peak of the 10 peaks. The 10 elders were all ranked according to their peaks, so their cultivation levels were similar. Elder Wu, who had recruited Chun Hao and the other disciples of the 100 Empire ranking, was the head elder of the 1st peak. The peak that Chun Hao and the other 4 had entered was the 1st peak of the outer sect. Cultivators have luck, but so does the sect. Elder Wu, the fact that you were able to recruit the 2nd runner-up of the 100 Empire ranking this year seems to be the beginning of our star-picking sect's luck. Of the top 10 disciples of the junior rankings, 6 have been squeezed out, 5 middle disciples, and 3 senior disciples. This has never happened before. There are still 10 days left, and it will be a fierce battle. It's hard to say who will be qualified to enter the 7-star grotto heaven. Haha. Elder Wu chuckled and said, no matter who obtains it, I'm sure they'll be able to improve tremendously in the 7 stars grotto heaven. Luck is such a mysterious thing. With so many dark horses appearing out of nowhere, it's very likely that spring has arrived for our star-picking sect. Haha. It's a pity that each level of the 7-star grotto heaven can only have 10 people. If we could have 100 people, our star-picking sect would have no problem becoming a 7th-rank sect in less than 10 years. Of course. Elder Wu, if luck really comes to us, then you'll be the one who deserves the most credit. You were able to snatch Chun Hao, Tantai Lian, and the others from a 7th-rank sect. You've really brought glory to our star-picking sect. Who knows, maybe we've even snatched their luck, haha. Chun Hao and Tantai Lian are indeed not bad. Tantai Lian is now firmly in the top 3 of the low-level disciples. If nothing unexpected happens, the sect master will probably give her an additional reward. She earned it with her own ability. Chun Hao was temporarily pushed to the 14th place among the intermediate disciples. The final ranking would only be determined after he returned. Thinking about it, it shouldn't be a problem for him to enter the top 10. Haha. Elder Wu stroked his long beard as he spoke. Since he had summoned Chun Hao, Tantai Lian and the others, he naturally had to seek the greatest benefits for them. The rewards promised by the sect master would not be considered as rewards if the 2 of them obtained the spots with their own ability. He could not let it go so easily. Elder Wu, you can't say that. When the sect master gave out the rewards, they were not at their current cultivation. Furthermore, several genius disciples have appeared in our other peaks. We can't possibly let the 1st peak take all the benefits, right? The 2nd peak's elder said. That's right. They're merely disciples of the 100 Empire ranking. They're merely fighting for some face with our star-picking sect. In terms of talent and battle power, how could our 3rd peak's Yi Wendao be inferior to Chun Hao? Shouldn't he be the one to receive the sect's rewards? Elder Wu indifferently glanced at the 3rd elder and said, Yi Wendao is indeed not bad. He can be considered a stunning talent. However, don't forget that he has the support of the Yi clan. As for Chun Hao, he's merely a disciple of the 100 Empire ranking. He's only 16 years old and came to the star-picking sect as a rank 1 martial saint. He's already advanced to rank 9 martial saint a month ago. What kind of speed is that? You all know what the sect master gave out as a reward. However, there were no secret rewards like the rumors. With such talent, do you think he's inferior to Yi Wendao? Whether he's inferior or not is not determined by one's cultivation. There's no point in talking too much. When Chun Hao returns, we'll naturally know. Elder Wu, do you dare to make a bet with me? The 3rd elder said confidently. Bet? Bet on what? Elder Wu was slightly stunned. I bet that Yi Wendao will be the number 1 intermediate disciple. Chun Hao will definitely not be his match. If he loses, my 7 profound gourd will be yours. If he wins, your blue sky sword will be mine. Shoo. The third elder's words shocked the other elders. The 7 profound gourd and the blue sky sword were the 2 strongest treasures. The third elder actually made such a huge bet. Everyone could not help but be shocked. They had already guessed that Yi Wendao must have had an astonishing fortuitous encounter and hidden strength. Otherwise, the third elder would not dare to make such a huge bet. After all, the news of the battle between Chen Hao and Kai Jin a month ago had already spread throughout the star-plucking sect. Everyone knew that Kai Jin was someone who could challenge the genius disciples of the martial god realm. I can't guarantee that Chen Hao will challenge Yi Wendao. After all, he only needs to enter the top 10. Yi Wendao is currently ranked first among the intermediate disciples. Isn't that simple? I'll let Yi Wendao challenge him. I believe that he will surely accept the bet. As long as you're willing to bet. Do you want to bet or not? The third elder said. Do you really want to bet? Very well, since you're so confident, I'll grant your wish. Elder Wu said straightforwardly. Although he was slightly worried, when he thought of Chen Hao's performance up until now, Elder Wu decided to go all out. Bang bang bang. In the Heavenly Wolf demonic area, Chen Hao lashed out with his palm. 18 enormous dragons danced in the air and blasted 3 earth demons with cultivation comparable to the 9th grade martial god realm into ashes, ending the battle once again. Nice. Chen Hao, I did not expect your strength to be so powerful after achieving the martial god realm. It's about time. The few of you have improved quite well. There are still 10 days before you outer disciples enter the 7 stars paradise. Let's return. Yi Feishue said as he stared at Chen Hao with bright eyes. During this month, Yi Feishue led the group to train in the Heavenly Wolf demonic area. Other than meditating to recover, they hunted earth demons and ventured deeper into the 7 stars paradise. With Yi Feishue, a late nascent soul expert, as well as the other disciples, Chen Hao's strength had increased by quite a bit. Especially Chen Hao, who shocked everyone. Originally, as a 9th grade martial saint, Chen Hao was the strongest disciple aside from a few golden core experts. 3 days ago, when he had achieved the martial god realm, Chen Hao's strength caused the disciples who had just reached the golden core realm to feel apprehensive. Great. Everyone answered at the same time. Junior brother Chen Hao, your current strength is sufficient for you to reach the top 10 of the advanced disciples. Why don't you give it a try when you return? The 3rd floor of the 7 stars paradise is several times stronger than the 2nd floor. There are many benefits. The reason why I was able to break through to the golden core realm in a little over a year was because of my comprehension in the 3rd floor. The barrier between the martial god realm and the golden core realm is extremely difficult. Many genius disciples are stuck in the martial god realm for 3 to 5 years, or even longer. A golden core expert said to Chen Hao as the group began to fly towards the exit of the Heavenly Wolf demonic area. This golden core expert was called Meng Fei. He was the strongest among the 5 golden core experts. He was also the only disciple who had entered both the 2nd and 3rd floors of the 7 stars paradise. That's right. Chen Hao, give it a try when you return. You already have no problems with the 2nd floor. With your strength, it's not impossible to break through to the 3rd floor. The earlier you reach the golden core realm, the better it will be for your future cultivation. In the cultivation world, only the golden core realm can be considered as the true beginning of cultivation. The gap between the martial god realm and the golden core realm is the true gap between heaven and earth. Right now, you can easily kill a demonic beast with the battle strength of a 9th grade martial god. However, a demonic beast with the battle strength of a golden core realm, even the weakest one, is still not something you can contend against. Yi Feishue said. Chen Hao nodded and said with a smile, Don't worry, I will definitely break through to the 3rd floor. However, senior brother Tanming, the rest of you, please don't blame me. Why would we? Not to mention that we don't have the qualifications to enter the top 10 this year. Even if we do, it will be a fair competition. We are all on the same side. Whoever is stronger will go up. Why would we blame you? Tanming said. The other martial god realm disciples also agreed one after another. Their gazes towards Chen Hao were filled with envy and a faint admiration. Not to mention them, even Yi Feixue felt grateful towards Chen Hao. Without Chen Hao, they wouldn't be where they were now. It could be said that Chen Hao had saved their lives. Yi Feixue had given up a month's worth of cultivation, and specially brought everyone here to hone their skills. She also felt completely guilty. Otherwise, if she had been able to directly kill Itoda back then, she would have returned by now. She could have brought them to cultivate along the way, but she would never have wasted her cultivation time like this. Whoosh! Whoosh! As Yi Feixue led Chen Hao and the rest back to the Zhaixing sect, two figures stepped on the clouds from the 7th grade sect, the Myriad Pill Pavilion, and disappeared into the horizon. In the Myriad Pill Pavilion, the Pavilion Master, the Vice Pavilion Master, the Inner Sect Elder, and an Outer Sect Elder all stood on the peak of the mountain, gazing respectfully at the two figures that had disappeared. Their hearts were in turmoil, and their expressions were filled with excitement. Phew! Finally, after the two figures had completely disappeared, everyone, including the Pavilion Master, let out a long sigh of relief. Lu Xiang, this time you have made a great contribution to our Myriad Pill Pavilion. Ha ha ha. The Pavilion Master glanced at the Outer Sect Elder, Lu Xiang, and said with a laugh. An unexpected gain. It was purely an unexpected gain. Pavilion Master, back then, I was actually more interested in the runner-up, Chen Hao. I really did not expect Lung Yihan to have such an identity. A mere runner-up of the 100 Empire ranking. No matter how talented he is, how can he be compared to Lung Yihan? Pass down my orders. From now on, Lung Yihan will directly enjoy the top treatment of a core disciple. Gutai, after Lung Yihan becomes an inner sect disciple, all the cultivation methods of the Myriad Pill Pavilion will be personally taught by you. Understood. The inner sect elder named Gutai, who stood beside the Pavilion Master, immediately said with a slightly excited expression. He was the cultivation imparting elder of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, and his cultivation was second only to the Pavilion Master. Any disciple of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, who could be personally taught a cultivation method by him would definitely be honored. However, at this moment, it seemed that being able to teach Lung Yihan a cultivation method made him feel extremely honored. Requesting recommendation votes and monthly votes. Thank you. After a few days of rest, Dark Mountain will erupt. During this period of time, I have to go for treatment of my cervical vertebrae and shoulders every 2 days. There is no other way. Come to vote for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 211. You have reached the martial god realm? The third elder stared at the figure before him in astonishment. To be exact, I'm a rank 9 martial god. Elder Meng, what's there to be surprised about? If it wasn't for me purposely suppressing my cultivation, I would have reached the golden core realm by now, the young man calmly said. Even in the face of the third summit's elder, his expression and tone remained calm and unperturbed. However, his aura was extremely sharp, containing a sharpness capable of tearing the sky apart and destroying the sun and moon. It was as if there was nothing that he did not dare to do, and nothing could stop him. This was a kind of lawless spirit and aura that firmly believed that he could defeat everything. This young man was none other than the super genius disciple of the third peak of the star-plucking sect, Yi Wendao. He was summoned by the third elder as soon as he returned from his training. When Yi Wendao had left half a year ago, he was only a rank 5 martial saint. However, he had defeated several rank 9 martial saints, and was ranked first among the intermediate disciples. His battle prowess was definitely monstrous. And now, after returning half a year, he had actually reached the rank of a rank 9 martial god. Even the third elder did not expect him to improve so quickly. In his opinion, Yi Wendao would definitely suppress his cultivation after reaching the rank of a rank 9 martial saint, and enter the second floor of the 7 stars chamber first before attempting to break through to the martial god realm. Even though he had absolute confidence in Yi Wendao, he did not think that Yi Wendao would be able to reach the top 10 of the advanced disciples in half a year's time. But now this. I didn't expect you to improve so quickly. It's impossible for us to fight, but it's still considered a victory. As long as Wu Zichuan doesn't go back on his words, the sky sword will be mine. The third elder said with a frown, as if he was talking to himself. Obviously, the relationship between the two was not ordinary. Elder Meng? Ha, it's like this recently. A super genius has appeared in our star-plucking sect. I believe you haven't heard about it yet. The one who tied with the champion of the 100 Empire ranking, Chen Hao. You know about it? Yi Wendao smiled slightly, as his eyes flickered with sharpness. Although I've been training for the past half a year, I've heard about the news of our star-plucking sect recruiting the champion of the 100 Empire ranking. Why could it be that Elder Meng made a bet with Elder Wu? Is it related to me and Chen Hao? That's right. Chen Hao had only been in the sect for a month, yet he already possessed the strength to challenge a martial god. Wu Zichuan actually wanted to ask the sect master for an additional reward for that kid. This time, the first peak will definitely have 2 people on the first floor, 3 on the second floor, and 2 on the third floor. If this continues, when will our third peak surpass them? Of course, I can't let that shameless thing succeed. So I provoked him and bet on the battle between you and Chen Hao. However, I didn't expect you to have advanced to rank 9 martial god. It seems like you've completely comprehended the inheritance of the Sword Lake remnants. Yi Wendao's eyes flashed with 2 sharp sword lights. He nodded proudly and said, not just the inheritance of the Sword Lake ruins. It can't be? You don't tell me. You obtained another powerful legacy in this half a year? The third elder asked in surprise and joy. When he saw Yi Wendao, his old face was brimming with excitement as he said, Good. No wonder the aura on your body is so domineering. Wendao, don't worry, I will support you with all my strength. In the future, the star-picking sect may very well be yours. Haha, that's for sure. Yi Wendao calmly said. He did not give the impression of being arrogant, but a sign of strength. It was as if to him, obtaining the position of sect leader of the star-picking sect was something extremely normal, even though he was only an outer disciple now. Yes, for sure. Tomorrow, you will challenge the top 10 advanced disciples. There are only 7 days left. Don't worry, I still need to comprehend something. It won't be too late to challenge on the last day. Yi Wendao said, Elder Meng, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. The last day? Good, that's even better. No one saw you on your way here, right? No. Then don't tell anyone that you've become a martial god for now. All right. Yi Wendao slightly frowned, but he still replied. Seeing Yi Wendao disappearing into the horizon, the smile on the third elder's face became even brighter as he mumbled. That Chen Hao is yet to return. Tomorrow morning, I only need to provoke him a little more. As long as the outcome is determined based on their strength, Wu Zichuan won't be able to go back on his word. That night, numerous rays of light streaked across the horizon. When Yi Feishue led Chen Hao and the others through the protective seal of the star-picking sect, Wu Zichuan, who had been keeping an eye on Chen Hao's movements, immediately sensed the aura of Chen Hao's token. Hence, a scene similar to the one that had occurred on the third elder's mountain peak occurred. As for Chen Hao, he also directly returned to his own palace for the last few days of seclusion. On the second day, when the challenges in the arena area began, third elder Meng Langong and first elder Wu Zichuan actually hit it off immediately. The outcome would be determined based on strength. Even if Chen Hao and Yi Wendao did not have a chance to fight, it would be fine as long as everyone acknowledged who was stronger. This is the star-picking sect. Go down. Master will follow you. In the night sky, an auspicious cloud had appeared above the star-picking sect. On the auspicious cloud, 2 figures could be seen. One wore a bamboo hat, and there was not a trace of energy fluctuation around him. It was as if he had merged with the heavens and the earth. He came and went with the wind, fluttering in the wind. Under the wide black robe and bamboo hat, he appeared even more mysterious. His voice was hoarse, and it was impossible to tell if it was a man or a woman. However, it was filled with boundless loneliness. The other figure was Leng Yihan. And Leng Yihan replied. Although he had 1,000 questions in his heart, he did not dare to ask. He originally thought that his master was just a loose cultivator, but now he knew that his master was not just a loose cultivator. Especially when he saw how respectful the pavilion master and the others were to his master, he was even more surprised. Staring at the majestic mountain peak of the star-picking sect, Lung Yihan felt a little excited. Who was the person that his master was looking for? Thinking back to when he mentioned Chen Hao to his master, who had always been emotionless, actually trembled slightly. Lung Yihan had a strange feeling. Who are you? When the two of them slowly landed on a mountain peak with the words Star-Picking Sect inlaid in gold outside the Star-Picking Sect, several young disciples guarding the mountain peak appeared in front of Lung Yihan. I am Lung Yihan of the 10,000 Pill Pavilion. I have come to visit Chen Hao. Brother, please inform him of my arrival, Lung Yihan said as he cupped his fists. Lung Yihan? You are the champion of the 100 Empire ranking, Lung Yihan? Are you here to challenge Chen Hao? A young disciple asked as he stared at Lung Yihan with a strange expression on his face. The other young disciples also looked at Lung Yihan with bright eyes. These disciples were all outer sect disciples of the star-picking sect. They took turns guarding the mountain peak. Challenge? You can say that. Lung Yihan was slightly surprised. Then, a trace of pride flashed on his face as he said indifferently. If you are here to challenge him, I advise you to return. Chen Hao became a 9th grade martial saint more than a month ago. He has the ability to defeat martial gods. Now he has gone out to train. I don't know if he has returned yet, the young disciple said with a trace of pride on his face. This disciple was the leader of the disciples present. He was an advanced disciple and a 4th grade martial god. Lung Yihan's aura was unusually sharp. Especially his eyes, they were like sword light. However, he was only an inferior grade martial saint. A 9th grade martial saint? It's not a good thing to advance so quickly. I'll have to trouble you to help me ask. I have an agreement with him. Your 7-star paradise is about to open. Even if he isn't here, he should be back soon, Lung Yihan said with a slight smile. All right. Wait a moment. After the young disciple finished speaking, he took out a transmission token and sent a message. After a moment, he received a reply. He looked at Lung Yihan and said, Chen Hao has returned. However, he is currently in seclusion. If there are no accidents, he should come out in 5 days. If you want to wait, go to the outer sect's first peak. However, Elder Wu said that Chen Hao can't accept your challenge for now. No problem. We can talk about the challenge later. I'll wait for him. Thank you. Please. It was common for sects to visit each other. As long as they were not enemies, they would be welcomed. As the champion of the 100 Empire ranking, and a disciple of the rank 7 10,000 Pill Pavilion, Lung Yihan naturally wouldn't refuse. How troublesome. If Master were to appear, I would definitely be able to see him now. Lung Yihan thought to himself as he followed a disciple flying in the sky. However, he vaguely understood that his master had appeared in the 10,000 Pill Pavilion to win benefits from him. A month ago, Chen Hao advanced to a 9th grade martial saint. Such rapid advancement must be for the 7-star paradise, right? Could he have advanced to a martial god now? It's very likely. Based on his personality, he would definitely want the best. The gains don't make up for the losses. However, he must be hiding many secrets. I'm only a 3rd grade martial saint. If we meet, won't he look down on me? It doesn't matter. I'll wait until I reach the nascent soul realm. I have to defeat him with an absolute advantage. Otherwise, Lung Yihan thought to himself. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but curl up, revealing a small dimple. If Chen Hao was present, he would probably be covered in goosebumps again. Fortunately, this feminine expression only flashed for a moment. Have you heard? The champion of the 100 Empire ranking, Lung Yihan of the 10,000 Pill Pavilion, has come to challenge Chen Hao. He arrived at the first peak last night. Is that so? Of course. Senior brother Lin Yuan was on duty last night. I heard him say that Lung Yihan's aura is only a lower grade martial saint. It's Chen Hao who's abnormal. Haha, Chen Hao really made us, the disciples of the 100 Empire ranking, proud. After being bullied for a few years, ever since Chen Hao arrived, look at the natives around us. They don't dare to be arrogant and say that they're going to kill all of you on the 100 Empire ranking. That's right. We're also advanced disciples. We don't have any hopes for the 7-star paradise. We only hope to become inner disciples in 2 years. Let's go. It's the last 4 days. The challenges in these few days will definitely be exciting. Let's go watch and learn. The news of Lung Yihan entering the star-picking sect to find Chen Hao was spread by the disciple on duty last night. Chapter 212. A red sun rose, and thousands of golden rays shone on the peak of the outer sect arena. This was the last day of the 7-star Grotto Heaven selection. Countless outer sect disciples had already gathered at the arena area. Even the inner sect disciples had come to watch the show. The 7-star cave heaven was very famous in the whole cultivation world of the eastern continent. Even among the inner disciples, more than 90% of them had never been there. It was a very popular place in the primordial realm. Countless outer disciples of the 7th and 8th grade sects coveted it. Today was the day when the coffin was closed. Today's battle was destined to be the most intense battle among the outer sect disciples this year. The hidden dark horses would inevitably surface one by one. The original 9 arenas had already magically merged into one at this moment, becoming an incomparably huge arena. Whoosh! 6 figures flew quickly in the air. What are you doing here? Chen Hao asked Lung Yihan, who was flying beside him, as he withdrew his aura. Today, when the last day of the competition was about to begin, Chen Hao had just exited his cultivation state. As soon as he came out, Lung Yihan, Tantai Lian, Yang Fan, and the others were already waiting at the entrance of his palace. He could only rush to the arena area to talk. Of course. What, are you going to renege on your promise? A gentleman keeps his word. I, Chen Hao, don't have the habit of going back on my word. But you really came at a bad time. Chen Hao frowned slightly. He felt strange seeing Lung Yihan this time. It wasn't that Lung Yihan was strange, but there was an indescribable feeling. It was like he was being watched, but he couldn't capture any aura. It was just intuition based on his powerful soul perception. It doesn't matter. It's good to see the genius disciples of the star-picking sect. Let's talk about it after your competition. I'm not here to ask you to fulfill your promise. It won't take long. Let's talk about it after your competition, Lung Yihan said. You've advanced so quickly. It's like building a castle in the air. It's not worth it. What rank are you now? Chen Hao withdrew his aura. Even with Lung Yihan's powerful perception, he couldn't determine what rank Chen Hao was at. Won't you find out later? Chen Hao smiled. It was unknown whether he did it intentionally or not, but he turned around and looked at Tantai Lian, who was flying behind him. He abruptly released his pure energy and wrapped it around Tantai Lian's hand. His speed suddenly increased several times as he said, "Hurry up. One of us is challenging the other, and the other is being challenged. Time is almost up." Li Yifeng suddenly felt as if he had discovered a new continent. Yang Fan and Enai Jianpei's eyes also suddenly widened. Lung Yihan's expression did not change. He suddenly sped up and chased after them. "Why are you pulling me?" Tantai Lian, who was smart, asked Chen Hao through telepathy, even though she was extremely surprised and her heart was beating faster. Lung Yihan, she was familiar with Yang Fan and the others. Moreover, although Chen Hao did not say it explicitly, he had mentioned Lung Yihan's strangeness in front of them. "We're in a hurry. There are still 2 minutes left. Can you make it by yourself?" Chen Hao said against his will. Tantai Lian glared at Chen Hao but did not say anything. It was just holding hands. Compared to the influence of the Phoenix inheritance, it was nothing. Even if Chen Hao explained, so what? Other than a few people who knew him well, who would believe it? Tantai Lian. Is that Chen Hao? Who else could it be other than Chen Hao? No wonder they are a pair of the Phoenix inheritance. Such a pair is too compatible. Does Chen Hao really have the ability to defeat the martial god? His aura is not strong. When Chen Hao and Tantai Lian landed side by side in the arena area, countless eyes immediately focused on the two. At this moment, everyone knew Tantai Lian. She was ranked 3rd among the low-level disciples, and had defeated countless 9th-grade martial grandmasters. As for the 1st and 2nd place, it was impossible to compare because they had never appeared. Chen Hao was the talk of the town. However, those who had seen Chen Hao, except for the disciples who had seen Chen Hao fight with Kai Jin in this year's 100 Empire ranking, almost no one had seen him. He was elusive. Glancing at the contestants' seats, Tantai Lian sat directly in the third seat of the low-level disciples' seats. Chen Hao glanced at the contestants' seats and smiled slightly. Under everyone's surprised gaze, he actually sat in the advanced disciples' seat. Could it be a mistake? Countless people looked at Chen Hao in surprise and started to discuss. Junior brother Chen Hao, this is the advanced disciples' seat. The intermediate disciples' seat is in the second row. An advanced disciple sitting beside Chen Hao said enthusiastically to Chen Hao. There was a trace of admiration in his eyes. Chen Hao smiled at that disciple and nodded. He said, "Senior brother, thank you for your reminder. I am going to challenge the advanced disciple's seat." Crash. Chen Hao's indifferent and not loud voice immediately caused a huge uproar. It exploded uncontrollably in the entire arena area. Martial God. Without a doubt, Chen Hao, who had returned after a month of experiential learning, had already stepped into the martial god realm. Furthermore, he was going to challenge the top 10 advanced disciples. Could he be an inferior grade martial god? At the same time, more than 10 disciples sitting in the advanced disciples' seat looked at Chen Hao without exception and frowned, including the temporary top 10 contestants. The 10 contestants who were sitting in the challenge seats were also looking at Chen Hao with a hint of hostility. As for the intermediate disciples, regardless of whether they were in the challenger's seat or the challenge seat, at the same time they were surprised, they revealed a joyful expression. What did this mean? It meant that without Chen Hao, they would have one more spot to compete for. Whoosh! 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 At that moment, many figures riding on clouds appeared above the arena and slowly descended to the main platform. Greetings, sect leader, greetings, elders. Greetings, sect leader, greetings, elders. Crash. Instantly, waves of voices exploded one after another. Every disciple in the arena area stood up and bowed with their fists clasped together. Some of the new disciples followed suit and bowed. Chen Hao stood up and bowed, his gaze quietly glancing toward the main platform. Until now, this was the first time he had seen the sect leader. Unexpectedly, the sect leader was a handsome middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. He had a scholarly appearance and an elegant demeanor. There's no need to be so polite. The sect leader smiled and waved his hand. Chen Hao felt an irresistible force gently pour into his body, and immediately helped him up. Like all the other disciples, Chen Hao was filled with astonishment. At that moment, there were more than 10,000 people in the arena area. However, with such a casual wave of his hand, he had helped more than 10,000 people up at the same time. What did that mean? What kind of shocking cultivation did that require? At that moment, on the main platform, the third elder of the outer disciples looked at Chen Hao, who was sitting in the advanced challenger's seat, with a strange expression. He cursed in his heart. No wonder they hit it off so easily. It turns out that Wu Zichuan has the same idea as me. This Chen Hao has also reached the martial god realm. Humph, so what? He is definitely not a match for Wen Dao. Whoosh! After the crowd sat down in shock, a ray of light flashed across the sky and gradually descended. Senior brother Yi Wen Dao is here. Crash. Regardless of the intermediate disciples, the lower disciples, the advanced disciples, or even the inner disciples, they all looked at the figure that was slowly descending from the sky. As Yi Wen Dao's sharp gaze scanned the contestants' seating area and landed on the advanced challenger's seat, a great uproar took place after Chen Hao's incident. Those at the intermediate challenger's seat and the challenged seat were overjoyed. 2 spots. 2 super geniuses who were destined to occupy 2 spots had unexpectedly become advanced disciples. How could they not be excited or unhappy? Especially those disciples whose strength was in between advancing and not advancing. They were so excited that they felt like howling. Meanwhile, those at the advanced challenger's seat and the challenged seat frowned. Dong. 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 While the crowd was still immersed in their astonishment, a magnificent chime of the bell could be heard. The time had come. Wu Zichuan slowly flew onto the arena. As the outer sect's grand elder, he cleared his throat and said, "Disciples, today is the last day of the outer sect's 3rd grade ranking. The 7 Stars Grotto Heavens qualification will be determined before sunset today." The old man emphasized that although the 7 Stars chamber is important, No one is allowed to purposely kill the participants. Let's start with the lower disciples. I don't think I need to explain the rules of the challenge, right? There's no need for that, Elder Wu. Let's begin. The crowd instantly burst into cheers. Wu Zichuan smiled and said, Okay, the challenge officially begins. The lower-level disciples who are challenging the disciples on the seating area. You can start in the order of your seats, from left to right, from front to back, and directly point out who you want to challenge. Shush. A disciple sitting at the front on the left immediately flew onto the arena and said, Disciple Jian Nanchun challenges Wu Liangye. Humph, I knew you would challenge me. Your courage is commendable after being defeated by me. Come, let me end your qualification for the 7 Stars Chamber. Shush. Wu Liangye let out a cold harumph and said proudly as he flew onto the arena. If the challenger won, he would replace the challenge's ranking, and the challenge's ranking would be adjusted accordingly. The disciples who were pushed out of the top 10 would become the challenger. However, if the challenger lost the first round, he would be disqualified. Under such circumstances, it was undoubtedly the best choice to challenge the 10th-ranked disciple. He had the highest chance of winning. However, Jian Nanchun did not challenge the 10th or 9th-ranked disciples. Instead, he directly challenged the 6th-ranked disciple, Wu Liangye. This was beyond many people's expectations, and his courage was commendable. However, many people were not surprised. The two of them had fought countless times, and Wu Liangye had won each time by a narrow margin. It was only in the past half a year that Jian Nanchun had not fought, as he had been training outside. It was obvious that he had absolute confidence in winning, which was why he dared to do so. The battle ended unexpectedly quickly. The arrogant Wu Liangye was actually defeated by Jian Nanchun in just 3 minutes. The person who was originally the 10th-ranked disciple became the challenger, and sat at the last seat of the challenger's seat. There were a total of 15 people who dared to challenge the lower-ranked disciples. They basically challenged the 10th, 9th, and 8th-ranked disciples. Until the end of the challenge, no one challenged Tantai Lian. After successfully confirming the top 10, Tantai Lian did not challenge the top 2 disciples when it was time for the top 10 disciples to challenge. A few disciples who were dissatisfied with their rankings did challenge her. After all, entering the 7 Stars Chamber was the greatest reward. Although there was no difference, the final ranking would affect the benefits of the sect. There were still many people who cared about it. Moreover, the outer sect elders, inner sect elders, and the sect master were all present. Who would not want to show their true strength? Second update. I went for treatment this morning. Fortunately, I did not bleed. I'm sorry for the late update. I'll go once every 2 days. I don't have to go anymore. I feel good now. I'll definitely explode in a few days. Chapter 213. The challenges went on like a raging fire. Among the 2,000 intermediate disciples, only 12 of them had the confidence to challenge the advanced disciples on the last day. However, due to Yi Wendao and Chen Hao, the 2 super geniuses, who had reached the advanced disciples' seats, some of the disciples were tempted to challenge the advanced disciples. Thus there were 18 of them. After 4 hours, the challenges of the intermediate disciples finally came to an end. Third Elder Meng Yugong glanced at the calm and composed Chen Hao, then transmitted his voice to Yi Wendao, who was sitting in the last row of the advanced disciples' challenge area. Wendao, this brat Chen Hao has concealed his aura. I can't see through his cultivation. However, since he dares to sit there, he must be a medial grade martial god. I heard that this brat's battle prowess is very high. Later on, he will be the first to challenge. Take a good look. If he loses, it will be even better. You can challenge the disciples that he has challenged before. After all, there are still the top 10 to challenge. If he wins, you can make your own judgment. If possible, challenge him directly. Although Meng Yugong had absolute confidence in Chen Hao, at this moment, he was unable to see through Chen Hao, who had concealed his aura. He could not even tell the difference between the upper, middle, and lower grades. This made him feel that something was wrong. Furthermore, when he thought of Chen Hao's abnormal talent, which allowed him to advance from 1st grade martial saint to 9th grade martial saint in a month, as well as his powerful battle prowess, He had no choice but to warn Yi Wendao. Although he did not want to admit it, Chen Hao was indeed a super genius on par with Yi Wendao. Yi Wendao, who had been paying attention to Chen Hao, did not show any change in his expression. He transmitted his voice to Meng Yugong. Elder Meng, don't worry. Even if he is a 9th grade martial god, he can forget about defeating me. He has only cultivated a technique to conceal his aura. Why would an expert need to conceal himself? Just wait for your blue sky sword. Of course, if he is really strong, I would be happy to see it. Meng Yugong was slightly stunned. Soon after, he could not help but reveal a smile on his face. He transmitted his voice to Yi Wendao. Good. Remember, if you can be ruthless. It's best if you can give him an unforgettable impression. This kind of super genius can only be defeated by truly destroying his spirit and confidence. Otherwise, he might still be one of your strongest competitors in the future. Don't worry, my Tao is the Tao of killing. It's fine if I don't attack, but if I do attack, it'll be fatal. As for not being able to intentionally kill, that doesn't exist to me at all. The moment you make a move, you immediately use a killing move. What is deliberate? Yuan sent a voice transmission proudly. That's good. Meng Yugang nodded with relief. Including Chen Hao and Yi Wendao, there were a total of 12 challengers. Chen Hao, who was the second last to enter, was naturally ranked 11th. Yi Wendao, who had arrived last, was ranked last. The 10 people in front of Chen Hao were basically experts who had deliberately appeared on the last day. In the 10 battles, they had displayed their incomparably powerful combat strength. Those who were slightly stronger would challenge those ranked 5th, 6th, or even higher. This was because if they challenged those ranked 10th, they would at most temporarily be ranked 10th. Those ranked the worst would definitely be challenged the most. If they continued to be challenged, although they would still be qualified to challenge others, it would be more troublesome. After the 10 battles, 5 of them had successfully entered the top 10, while the other 5 who were originally ranked in the top 10 were pushed down. As for the other 5, they had failed their first challenge and were directly disqualified. As soon as the battle for the 10th rank ended, everyone's attention was focused on Chen Hao. I wonder who Chen Hao will challenge? In less than 3 months, he has been promoted to a senior disciple. This speed of improvement is even faster than senior brother Yi Wendao. I wonder what grade of martial god he is. Senior sister, is Chen Hao really capable? Behind the crowd, the inner disciples of the star-picking sect were divided into different groups and gathered together. Although they appeared to be scattered, if one were to take a closer look, they would discover that these groups were all gathered around a core disciple with a powerful aura. At this moment, Dongfang Ting stared at Chen Hao, who had already stood up, and asked the person beside her in disbelief. Because of the 100 Empire ranking, Dongfang Ting had not focused on cultivation for nearly a year. Therefore, she had basically been cultivating in seclusion during this period of time, and had only come out 2 days ago. Until now, Chen Hao was about to start the challenge for the senior disciples, but she had yet to meet Chen Hao. There is no problem for him to enter the top 10. Yi Feishua also stared at Chen Hao and said indifferently. Looking at Yi Feishua's expression, Dongfang Ting suddenly felt strange. It was as if Yi Feishua had become her old self, who had absolute confidence in Chen Hao. Even though Dongfang Ting knew Chen Hao well, she still could not understand how Chen Hao could subdue Yi Feishua, a core disciple who was in the late nascent soul realm, and possessed powerful combat strength. Elder Wu, I challenge senior brother Duan Shuelu. Whoosh! The moment Chen Hao flew towards the arena, a clear voice resounded throughout the entire arena area. The disciple named Duan Shuelu frowned slightly, and immediately emitted a powerful battle intent as he flew towards the arena. Duan Shuelu, who is ranked 10th. That doesn't seem very shocking. He should only be a medial grade martial god. It looks like he is not very confident. In any case, he has the Hall Master's reward. Even if he can't reach the advanced level, he should still be able to reach the intermediate level. That's right. Maybe he is just an inferior grade martial god who is here to join in the fun. Damn it. You better succeed. While the crowd was discussing, the faces of the intermediate disciples who had already confirmed the 10th rank turned green. Yi Wendao was fine, but Chen Hao was rumored to have a reward from the sect master. If Yi Wendao did not succeed in breaking through to the senior disciple rank, he would be qualified to enter the second floor of the 7 Stars Paradise. That meant that he would be pushed down from the 10th rank. Who would not feel depressed? The depressed disciples could only pray that Chen Hao would emerge victorious. In the center of the arena, Duan Shuilu and Chen Hao were 200 zhang apart. Junior brother Chen Hao, there is already a spot for you among the intermediate disciples. If you are here to join in the fun, I think it's better if you don't fight, so as to not waste everyone's time. Duan Shuilu said with a frown. As he spoke, he unleashed his aura. The powerful aura of a rank 9 martial god instantly filled the place. As long as Yi Wendao stepped onto the arena, he would be pushed down from the ranking. The reason was simple. Although Yi Wendao was only an intermediate disciple among the outer disciples, he was considered the top genius with unlimited potential. At that moment, Yi Wendao did not have a way out like Chen Hao. Since he had already achieved the martial god realm, he was extremely confident in himself. Although he was destined to be pushed down by Chen Hao, he did not want to waste his time on Chen Hao. It shouldn't take long. It won't take long, Chen Hao said with a smile. The colorless energy of the martial god realm spread out. After sensing Chen Hao's aura, the crowd began to hiss. After hearing what Chen Hao had just said, the crowd assumed that Chen Hao was here to join in the fun. The reason for that was because his aura was only that of a rank 1 martial god. Although his aura was a few times more powerful than that of an ordinary rank 1 martial god, the aura of his cultivation level was very clear. Rank 1 martial god? How boring. It seems like there is no need for me to challenge him. Yi Wendao frowned and shook his head. His eyes were filled with disdain and disappointment. Duan Shuilio's expression stiffened, but he felt relieved and said, I respect you as a genius, but joining in the fun at this moment is extremely boring. Go down. Duan Shuilu let out a hiss and took out a crimson sword. As he spoke, he took a step forward and charged toward Chen Hao at lightning speed. A terrifying aura was emitted from his body. He held the sword with both hands and raised it high. When he was 30 zhang away from Chen Hao, he slashed downward. Slash. A blazing sword radiance was about to melt the heaven and earth. The yin and yang energy of the heaven and earth, which was majestic, vigorous and violent, rumbled toward Duan Shuilu with a powerful aura. Boom. Chen Hao looked calm. However, when Duan Shuilu attacked, the energy around his body suddenly rose violently. The colorless energy, which was only the aura of a rank 1 martial god, was shining strangely at this moment. It was as if the energy had materialized, which made Chen Hao's aura soar violently. He threw a punch at Duan Shuilio's sword radiance. Rumble. A terrifying explosion sounded. When the sword radiance was 10 meters away from Chen Hao, it was smashed into pieces. Ah! Exclamations of disbelief came from the crowd. Duan Shuilu was a bit surprised. Then his face became serious. He had only used 50% of his energy in this attack. Although Chen Hao was bored, he was still a super genius in the sect. Duan Shuilu didn't dare to go too far. Duan Shuilu was only a rank 1 martial god. If he had used all of his energy, he might have killed Duan Shuilu directly. At that time, he would have done it on purpose. However, he didn't expect that Duan Shuilu could easily break his attack with only 50% of his energy. How could he dare to underestimate Duan Shuilu? Without any hesitation, Duan Shuilu hurriedly took a step forward and turned into a blur. He gathered the energy around him to the peak and attacked Chen Hao again from a strange direction. Duan Shuilio's full energy tore the air apart and slashed toward Chen Hao again with a terrifying sound of breaking the air. That's right. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Chen Hao's clear voice was heard. He seemed to be moving slowly, but he was actually very fast. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at Duan Shuilio's sword radiance. When he was only 10 meters away from Duan Shuilu, he threw out a powerful punch with dazzling golden light. Bang! Rumble! Duan Shuilu was extremely shocked. Chen Hao's punch had shattered his sword radiance again. Moreover, at such a close distance, Duan Shuilu almost lost his sword and was forced to retreat. In the violent energy, Chen Hao didn't retreat. Instead, he moved forward. The energy around his body became even more dazzling. In an instant, it became a close-range battle. Fist shadows were everywhere. Bang! 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 At the critical moment, Duan Shuilu condensed layers of powerful protective aura in front of him to block Chen Hao's lightning-fast attacks. Duan Shuilu retreated quickly. The energy around his body was crazily gathering toward the big red sword. He didn't expect Chen Hao to be so powerful. However, he was unwilling to lose the battle like this. At least, he had to use his most powerful attack. As the energy crazily poured into the big red sword, the sword's aura became more and more terrifying. It was as if the nirvana flame was burning, competing with the sun and the moon. Sky-breaking sun. Duan Shuilu finally finished condensing the energy. He shouted loudly and thrust his sword forward. First update. Brothers and sisters, can you vote for Zhang Yu? Those who don't have a monthly vote can do it. Thank you. Chapter 214. Heavenly Sun Piercing Sky. The strongest move of the Heavenly Sun Sword Art. Although Duan Shuilu had released it in a hurry and had not reached his highest level, because he had leaped high, he had completely enveloped Chen Hao and locked him under the sword momentum, causing the effect of his attack to be even stronger. I'm afraid this Chen Hao is going to lose. He only knows how to blindly attack. He's too arrogant. On the rostrum, the third elder, Meng Xiangang, sat there calmly. He had a faint smile on his face as he spoke softly. First Elder Wu Zichuan frowned slightly, but did not say anything. He just stared at the arena nervously. At this moment, even Dongfang Ting, Tan Tai Lian, and other people who were familiar with Chen Hao looked worried. Only Yi Feishue and the dozen disciples who had entered the Sky Wolf Demon area with Chen Hao still looked calm. No one knew better than them how terrifying Chen Hao's battle strength was. Although Duan Shuilu's move was powerful, it was far from enough to make Chen Hao flinch. Lose. Duan Shuilu, who had leaped high, shouted coldly after launching a sword attack that was condensed with all his energy. At this moment, Chen Hao's expression did not change at all. He changed the finger-guessing game into a palm, and drew a circle in front of him in a strange way. In an instant, an extremely condensed energy ball was condensed between his palms, which was emitting a crystal light. He withdrew his power and suddenly shot it at Duan Shuilu, who was diagonally above him. The strong and bright crystal light seemed to have completely materialized and soared into the sky. Boom! The ball collided with the sword light, and the terrifying energy made the whole mountain tremble violently. Hiss! Chen Hao's body seemed to have solidified into a statue and did not move at all. However, his feet, which were stepping on the ground, emitted a hiss and drew 2 deep gullies. He retreated 100 feet before finally stopping. His face was not red and he was not out of breath. His appearance was calm. However, Duan Shuilu was like a kite with a broken string, tumbling in the void for hundreds of feet before falling to the ground. He was in a sorry state, and a wisp of blood had already spurted out. Duan Shuilu got up awkwardly. Just as he was about to speak, he spat out another mouthful of blood and staggered. Seeing this scene, the referee directly appeared between the two and announced loudly, Chen Hao wins. Duan Shuilu retreats to the challenger group. Voila! At this moment, the whole arena area burst into a fierce uproar. Especially those disciples who originally thought that Chen Hao was just playing around. Their mouths were directly sealed by Chen Hao's powerful strength. Although Duan Shuilu was ranked 10th among the senior disciples, he was only ranked 10th because he was pushed down by the disciples in front of him. His true strength didn't necessarily mean that he was ranked 10th. Even though he had returned to the challenge department, many people who knew Duan Shuilu well believed that he still had the ability to challenge others. In the end, he might even be able to enter the top 10. But Chen Hao was actually so simple. He didn't even use a weapon, and easily won with his terrifying and powerful fist and palm techniques. Whoosh! 2 old men flew to Chen Hao and Duan Shuilu as fast as lightning. After every battle, there would be spiritual pills and help from experts. As long as the injuries were not serious, they would be able to recover to their peak state in a short time. This was also the key to ensuring the fairness of the challenge. Duan Shuilu, who was injured by the rebound, would naturally not refuse. He did not need the help of experts to recover. However, after Chen Hao took the spiritual pills from the old man, he refused the old man's help to recover. This surprised the crowd again. What kind of combat strength was this? At least the disciples below the martial god realm felt that it was unfathomable. The performance just now was far from Chen Hao's limit. In fact, Chen Hao had consumed a lot of energy. However, under the suppression of the mysterious talisman, the situation in his dantian could not be sensed by anyone. However, it would be hard to say if the old man helped him recover. Therefore, he could not let the old man help him. Besides, with the spiritual pills provided by the old man, Chen Hao could recover in a short time with his abnormal recovery ability. He did not need the old man's help. A rank 1 martial god is this strong? Impossible. Even if I were a rank 1 martial god, it would still be impossible for me to possess such battle prowess. He must have practiced some sort of secret technique that can change his aura. Otherwise, it would be impossible for me to not be able to detect his cultivation after he concealed his aura. Very good. Only then is he worthy of my battle. Yi Wendao thought to himself as he stared at Chen Hao, who had reached the 10th place. His battle intent immediately rose because of Chen Hao's unexpected performance. Wendao. Just as Yi Wendao was about to stand up, the third elder Meng Xigong's voice suddenly sounded. Challenge the 9th place first. After eliminating all the challengers and confirming that you are in the top 10, you can challenge Chen Hao. This kid's combat strength is unfathomable. He must have a trump card that he has not revealed yet. It's not that I don't trust you, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Listen to me. Is that so? That's good. Since that's the case, I'll have a duel with him in the top 10 ranking battle. Yi Wendao said with a slight frown. He was not afraid of Chen Hao. Instead, he felt that it would be more fun to have a duel later. Whoosh! I challenged the 9th place Li Yang. Yi Wendao's calm voice astonished the crowd. Chen Hao challenged the 10th place to replace him, while he challenged the 9th place, but avoided Chen Hao. Could it be that he was afraid of Chen Hao? Otherwise he would have challenged Chen Hao, or challenged the top few rankers. That would have been more in line with Yi Wendao's wild character. However, when Yi Wendao flew into the arena, he suddenly looked at Chen Hao with a provocative gaze. It made the crowd understand that this was not the case. Such a powerful aura. This aura, I'm afraid he has already comprehended the barrier to the Xiantian realm. Definitely, as expected of the outer disciples #1 genius, what a monster. The instant Yi Wendao stepped into the arena and unleashed his power, the incomparably sharp aura and pressure that contained the power to tear apart the sky and destroy the sun and moon shocked the entire arena. Powerful. This Yi Wendao is actually so powerful. He already has the faint aura of breaking through to the Golden Core realm. If Chen Hao were to encounter him, he would only have a 20% chance of winning. Yi Feishue frowned and thought to herself after sensing Yi Wendao's aura. Yi Wendao was not only known by Yi Feishue, but also by the entire star-picking sect. He was the most dazzling existence among the outer disciples. Half a year ago, when he was only a 5th-grade martial saint, he was already a super genius who defeated a 9th-grade martial saint. And now, half a year later, he had already advanced to a 9th-grade martial god. Furthermore, he had comprehended the barrier and was half a step into the Golden Core realm. No matter how talented he was, it was impossible for him to do that just by relying on cultivation alone. He was definitely the same as Chen Hao, possessing an extremely powerful concealment ability. Chen Hao did not mention the matter regarding Ito Tai's nascent soul, and Yi Feishue did not ask. However, this did not mean that Yi Feishue was not curious. It was just that this involved one's privacy, and it was not appropriate for her to ask. Every cultivator had their own secrets. Chen Hao also felt a huge threat and challenge from Yi Wendao's gaze. In addition, Elder Wu had specifically instructed him when he had just returned. Chen Hao knew that a confrontation between him and Yi Wendao was inevitable. It could be seen from Yi Wendao's intention of challenging the 9th rank. Chen Hao has met a strong opponent. Leng Yihan, who was sitting with Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Anai Jianpain, felt Yi Wendao's aura. His eyes flashed with a hint of sharpness as the corner of his mouth rose slightly. He is indeed very strong. Leng Yihan, do you think he is stronger or Chen Hao is stronger? In terms of pure energy and aura, Yi Wendao is naturally stronger. However, Chen Hao's chances of winning should be around 50%, Lung Yihan said after frowning slightly and muttering to himself. Compared to Yi Feishue, although Lung Yihan had not seen Chen Hao's recent battles, he had absolute confidence in his judgment. Li Yang frowned deeply. Just from Yi Wendao's aura, he already knew that he had lost. However, it was too shameful to give up without a fight. After forcing himself to fight, he was cleanly sent flying by Yi Wendao's palm. He could not resist at all. Yi Wendao's victory pushed Chen Hao out of the top 10, returning him to the list of challengers. Immediately after, the challengers who had been pushed out of the top 10 began to challenge again. The first challenger naturally did not dare to challenge Yi Wendao. However, he did not challenge Li Yang either. Otherwise, the challengers behind him could easily push him out of the top 10. Moreover, after reaching the 10th rank, there might be more challengers. There were a total of 6 challengers in front of Chen Hao, including Duan Xuelu, who had been defeated by Chen Hao. The 6 battles ended quickly. Only 2 challengers succeeded. 4 challengers were eliminated again. Li Yang and Yi Wendao were pushed out. Once again, they entered the challengers' area. At this moment, everyone's eyes were once again focused on Chen Hao. He will challenge the first. Lung Yihan smiled slightly and said softly, "I challenge senior brother Li Long." Chen Hao said in a clear voice as he flew towards the arena. "Is they? Lung Yihan, you and Chen Hao are really telepathic." Li Yifeng looked at Lung Yihan in surprise. There was a hint of mockery in his eyes as he carefully observed the changes in Lung Yihan's expression. "How accurate," Yang Fan said. "Indeed," Anai Jianpain said with a smile. Lung Yihan's lips curled up slightly. He did not realize that the 3 of them were looking at him strangely. Instead, he said with a little pride, "It would be strange if he could hold back in the face of provocation." He got first place directly. When it's Yi Wendao's turn to challenge him again, he will definitely challenge him. I didn't expect that there would be someone like Yi Wendao in your star-picking outer sect. If I had known, I would have joined in the fun. Lung Yihan's words made Li Yifeng and the other 2's expressions become extremely strange. They quickly turned to look at the arena. They did not speak again. Chen Hao was right. This guy not only does he like men, he is also a playboy. He seems to like super geniuses, Li Yifeng thought to himself. Yang Fan and Anai Jianpain also felt the same. After all, Chen Hao had said in front of them that Lung Yihan was strange in some ways. Although he did not say it explicitly, Tantai Lian understood. How could the 3 of them not understand? Second update. Requesting monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you. Chapter 215. Chen Hao actually dares to challenge senior brother Li Long. This is going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. Senior brother Li Long has dominated the advanced disciples for half a year, and no one has been able to shake his position of number 1. Until now, no one has dared to challenge him. It is said that 1 month ago, senior brother Li Long comprehended sword intent and became a true sword artist, sword god. Yet, if that's not the case, how could no one challenge him? Let's wait and see. This Chen Hao is also unfathomable. He's only a rank 1 martial god, yet his battle strength is already so strong. With the addition of Yi Wendao, who seems to be even stronger, the battle between the 3 of them will definitely be extremely exciting. If there's no surprise, the top 3 of the advanced disciples will be these 3. That's right. Chen Hao lost in terms of cultivation, so he'll most likely be ranked 3rd. Although senior brother Li Long has comprehended sword intent, compared to Yi Wendao's monstrous talent, he's still inferior. Senior brother Li Long should be ranked 2nd. If there's no surprise, Yi Wendao will undoubtedly be ranked 1st. His aura is too terrifying. Even though Chen Hao's terrifying battle strength had received everyone's acknowledgement in the previous battle, however, due to the limitation of his cultivation, the majority of the people were still not optimistic about Chen Hao's chances. After all, before Li Long had comprehended sword intent, he had already dominated the advanced disciples. As for how strong his current strength was, no one could guess. However, at least one thing was certain. After comprehending sword intent, He was definitely many times stronger than before. Even if he were to defeat Yi Wendao, it would not be surprising. Very good. Yi Wendao squinted his eyes and said indifferently. Among the advanced disciples, the one who posed the greatest threat to him was Li Long, who was high and unpopular among the advanced disciples. He was also the one he really wanted to challenge. As for Chen Hao, it was completely unexpected. Before Chen Hao's battle, Yi Wendao did not even take Chen Hao seriously. And now, after seeing the two opponents that made his battle intent soar, colliding with each other in advance, Yi Wendao's gaze became even more fiery. Whoosh! While the crowd was discussing, Li Long slowly stood up. Two sharp and disdainful sword glints flashed across his eyes. With a flicker, he appeared in the center of the arena. Unleash your true strength. Hiding your head and showing your tail will only restrict your improvement. Yi Zichen said. A true genius should have a body like a sword, a heart like a sword, and walk like a sword. Following one's heart and nature, the sword pointed to the heavens. Li Long stood proudly. His figure was as straight as a sword, and his gaze was as sharp as a sword. His entire being gave off the feeling of a sharp sword. His words seemed to be filled with disdain for Chen Hao, but it was filled with righteousness. It was more like a reminder, and it did not cause disgust. Chen Hao cupped his fists and said, Senior brother Li Long is right, but that is your sword Dao, not mine. As for me, I don't have the ability to conceal my cultivation. Really? Then let's cut the crap and attack. Li Long frowned slightly as he stared at Chen Hao. His gaze clearly carried a trace of suspicion and disdain. He absolutely did not believe that Chen Hao did not conceal his cultivation. As he spoke, his clothes fluttered even though there was no wind, and the aura around him suddenly soared. Strands of peerlessly fierce sword intent gushed out, and his entire body seemed to have transformed into a sharp sword that pointed straight to the sky. He hadn't even made a move, yet the peerlessly fierce sword force had already suffused out and swept through the entire arena. Even in the arena area outside the barrier, everyone could feel the terrifying aura of the sword aura. Clang, clang. The sound of two treasured swords being unsheathed rang out at the same time. Unlike Li Long, Chen Hao's aura not only did not soar but instead became illusory and fleeting. His figure was fleeting, and his sword aura was fleeting. It was soft and gentle, like catkins in the wind. It fluttered in Li Long's sword aura, changing in a myriad of ways. He was like a ghost, unaffected and unpredictable. Flowing cloud sword technique? Sensing Chen Hao's aura, Li Long's eyes narrowed. At the same time, the eyes of the entire arena area, including the big shots on the rostrum, flashed with a hint of surprise. This aura was the flowing cloud sword technique, the basic cultivation technique of the star-picking outer sect disciples. However, this was not what surprised everyone. What surprised everyone was that Chen Hao was able to display the sword aura of the flowing cloud sword technique to such a level. This was definitely an aura that could only appear after he had truly comprehended the supreme profound of the flowing cloud sword technique. In addition, what shocked everyone was that Chen Hao's footwork, movement, and posture were obviously not related to the flowing cloud sword technique. It was as if he had integrated the profound of the flowing cloud sword technique into another sword skill. Sword breaking all directions. Bang! Li Long, whose aura had condensed to the peak, took a step forward. Two resplendent lights bloomed under his feet, and two deep pits appeared on the ground. His entire person was like a treasured sword that tore through the void. He and his sword became one, and merged with the spatial law. A distance of several hundred feet was crossed in an instant. Accompanied by a terrifying sonic boom, a sword as fast as lightning broke through the air, transforming into 8 sharp sword lights that slashed towards the erratic Chen Hao. Chi 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 chi. Rumble. Every single one of the 8 sword lights seemed to have passed through Chen Hao's erratic figure, but no energy collision occurred. They all fell into the air, leaving behind 8 deep trenches that were several hundred feet long on the ground. On the other hand, the low-grade spirit sword in Chen Hao's hand that every outer court disciple possessed had already pierced towards Li Long's chest like a bolt of lightning. Come at me! Li Long shouted loudly, and wasn't surprised in the slightest. The sword breaking all directions was originally meant to lock down the erratic Chen Hao, making it impossible for Chen Hao to avoid a head-on battle with him. Because even his sword move was unable to lock onto Chen Hao's ever-changing position. He could only rely on his valiant cultivation to force Chen Hao to the position he wanted. And he had done it. Ding ding ding. Boom boom boom. In the blink of an eye, the dense sound of swords clashing resounded throughout the entire arena area. Among the outer court disciples, apart from Yi Wendao and a few others who had some kind of talent who could still catch the movements of the two, almost all the disciples felt their vision blur. They simply couldn't see clearly how many times the two had exchanged blows in an instant. The dense sounds of metal clashing against metal seemed to have become one continuous sound, accompanied by the explosion caused by the scattered sword light. It was extremely terrifying. What a fast sword! What exquisite sword moves! The important figures on the rostrum couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Li Long, who had comprehended sword intent, maintained the unity of man and sword from beginning to end. His attacks were extremely fast and extremely dangerous. But Chen Hao, who wasn't a swordsman, made the experts who could see clearly even more shocked. He didn't have the unity of man and sword, but he gave people a feeling that his sword was a sword, his hands were a sword, and his feet were a sword. There was no part of his body that wasn't a sword. Every move was a sword. Moreover, every move of his was an attack, aimed directly at a vital point, without the slightest bit of defense. Without comprehending sword intent, he wasn't a swordsman, but he seemed to be in existence above the sword. Without any moves, he was lonely and untamed, as lonely as snow. It seemed to be a stalemate, with neither side able to do anything to the other. Gradually, some experts began to realize that purely in the clash of sword techniques, Li Long, the genius swordsman, was completely suppressed. It was as if every move was under the control of Chen Hao, and every move was within Chen Hao's calculations. If not for Chen Hao's strength being at a disadvantage, the outcome would have already been decided. His progress is actually so fast. It seems that if I continue to be idle, I'll be surpassed by him. Leng Yihan muttered to himself as he stared at Chen Hao and Li Long, who were alternately flying in the air and landing on the ground. His fierce gaze and pupils gradually contracted. At this very moment, facing Chen Hao, whose cultivation completely surpassed his own, he still had the confidence to fight to a draw. Of course, this kind of draw was built on the basis that he was avoiding the battle. In reality, because of the difference in cultivation, his battle strength was already far from being comparable to Chen Hao's. However, if he were to raise his cultivation to Chen Hao's current level, he would have a 60% chance of victory. If he wanted to truly fight to a draw, it would be very simple. His sword technique is indeed brilliant. Unfortunately, his strength is far from mine, and I won't be restrained by him. If this Li Long only has this bit of ability, there's no challenge at all. At the same time, Yi Wendao's face shone with pride as he thought disdainfully in his heart. He directly erased Li Long from his mind. As someone who specialized in the Tao of killing and poking, he was very disdainful of Li Long, who had been forced to defend everywhere by Chen Hao and had basically stopped attacking. In battle, there was only victory and defeat, life and death. As long as this goal was achieved, any price could be paid. But Li Long clearly didn't have this kind of resolve. "Break for me." Just at that moment, Li Long abruptly shouted loudly. He pushed his power to the peak and poured it into the block. The berserk power immediately had an effect. It forced the weaker Chen Hao to explosively retreat several feet. Seizing this instant, Li Long also explosively retreated. Although he was unwilling and didn't want to admit it, in terms of sword technique he had already lost to Chen Hao. This was already a humiliation to him. However, in order to win the competition he had to do this. A dazzling golden light suddenly rose from his body. At this moment, Li Long's exposed skin seemed to be covered in a layer of gold, turning him into a golden man. The undying Vajra technique? Immediately, waves of exclamations erupted from the crowd. The undying Vajra technique was the most powerful physical technique in the star-picking sect for those below the golden elixir realm. As long as one completed a certain number of sect missions, and a small amount of sect contribution points, one would be qualified to cultivate it. However, very few people cultivated it. This was because not only was cultivating a physical technique unbearably painful, but the most important thing was that progress was slow and it was extremely difficult to master. Therefore, no one was willing to pay such a high price to cultivate a technique that had extremely slow results, and might not even be able to master it. Amazing, I didn't expect senior brother Li Long to cultivate the Undying Vajra technique, and to master it. Strange, could it be that senior brother Li Long can't defeat Chen Hao with his sword technique? Many people asked doubtfully as they marveled at Li Long's mastery of the Undying Vajra technique. Without a doubt, these people were the disciples who couldn't see Chen Hao's and Li Long's sword techniques clearly. It should be, otherwise, how could senior brother Li Long use the Undying Vajra technique? It's unbelievable, senior brother Li Long is a swordsman, a 9th-grade sword god. How could Chen Hao be so strong in sword technique? What a powerful body-tempering technique. I'm afraid Chen Hao will. When Lung Yihan saw this scene, he frowned slightly and said, "First update, looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you." Chapter 216. What do you mean? Li Yifeng and the other two looked at Lung Yihan and asked, "I'm afraid none of you have experienced Chen Hao's swordsmanship before, right? Back then, on the 100 Empire ranking, I was able to fight him to a draw, and the situation was not much different from now. The only difference was that Li Long used a body-tempering technique, and I used a battle armor. With this protection, Chen Hao's swordsmanship will be greatly restrained, and its power will be sharply reduced." But what? Lung Yihan looked at Li Yifeng and the other two. After a slight pause, he said, "You won't understand even if I tell you. Li Long is not me. Chen Hao should have a high chance of winning." Whoosh! At this moment, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a trace of sharpness. The aura around his body suddenly converged to the extreme, and turned into a gust of wind. Merging with the world and containing the law of space, his speed reached the extreme. Pooh! Everyone, including Li Long, who was immersed in the valiant feeling brought about by the Undying Vajra art, had yet to react when the sound of a body breaking rang out clearly in everyone's ears. Whoosh! A cool breeze blew, and a figure instantly crossed 100 jong and stood in the center of the stage, clearly appearing in everyone's eyes. Lung Yihan's eyes widened in shock. On the rostrum, the sound of teacups shattering rang out. Everyone looked at the visual shock brought by this moment in shock. Even they couldn't believe that what was happening in front of them was real. Silence, absolute silence. Everyone in the arena area stopped talking and stared blankly at the scene on the stage. How is this possible? How is this possible? Li Long's eyes were wide open as he stared at the trembling sword that was an inch away from his heart. He simply couldn't believe this was real. How could the Undying Vajra art be broken so easily? There wasn't even the slightest sense of danger. There wasn't even any feeling of energy collision. How could it be broken so easily? Everyone was shocked, especially the experts who knew the power of the Undying Vajra art. They couldn't be any more shocked. The Undying Vajra technique was the most powerful body-tempering technique in the star-picking sex Xiantian realm. Once it was used, it could transform one's body into steel and iron, increasing one's defense to the extreme. Moreover, the stronger one's energy, the harder one's body would become. As long as the opponent's energy did not exceed his own by too much, even a spirit sword would not be able to break through his defense. But now, under Chen Hao's sword, he was like a piece of tofu. He didn't even put up the slightest resistance before his body, which was as hard as diamond, was penetrated. Chen Hao wins. The referee's majestic voice carried a trace of shock as he broke the silence and announced Chen Hao's victory. Two figures were as fast as lightning, respectively charging towards Li Long and Chen Hao. Like before, Chen Hao only accepted the spirit pills and refused the old man's help. Seeing the other old man seal Li Long's meridians and pull out his treasured sword, Chen Hao made a grasping motion and retrieved his treasured sword. His expression was calm as he flew to the advanced disciple's seat where Li Long had originally sat. Crash! At this moment, the entire arena area was in an uproar. Exclamations and praises filled the air. Their gazes towards Chen Hao were filled with shock and admiration for the strong, No one thought that Li Long had not mastered the Undying Vajra art. Turning into a golden man was the highest level of the Undying Vajra art. The only reason for this was that Chen Hao had displayed a powerful and indestructible technique that no one could comprehend. That sword did not have a shocking aura, only speed and sharpness. It did not even cause the slightest fluctuation of heaven and earth's energy. However, the terror of that sword was deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. At the very least, none of the outer disciples present believed that they could dodge it. Even Yi Wendao could not be sure. He had not seen it clearly and did not know what kind of mysteries Chen Hao's sword contained. A trace of solemnity finally flashed across Yi Wendao's eyes. The true essence of the wind attribute, the martial god realm's spatial laws, integrated with all things in heaven and earth, divine level mind energy. He's actually so strong. Lung Yihan's eyes were as sharp as swords as he stared at Chen Hao's back. He frowned and pondered. Now he had to admit that he had underestimated Chen Hao's battle strength. Others did not know about Chen Hao's powerful spiritual energy, but Lung Yihan knew about the battle between him and Chen Hao. Only then would Chen Hao dare to merge with heaven and earth in front of a powerful opponent. Phew! Lung Yihan let out a long sigh. His battle intent rose, but it was immediately extinguished. At this moment, due to the restriction of his realm, he was not Chen Hao's opponent at all. Moreover, the time and place did not qualify him to enter the arena. This little guy is not bad. Yihan, don't be discouraged. Your conditions are better than his. Don't force a breakthrough because of your temporary strength. Remember Master's words. Before you comprehend the third level of the carving technique, you cannot break through to the Golden Core realm. Don't answer me. There are many experts here. The hoarse and strange voice sounded directly in Lung Yihan's mind when his emotions were fluctuating. Wendao, are you confident? The three elders' faces turned ugly as they transmitted their voice to Yi Wendao. 60%. I can't see through him. This kid must be hiding a lot. I'm not confident that I can block that sword, but I won't be as weak as Li Long Elder Meng. Do you see anything? Yi Wendao asked. Wind attribute. Martial God Realm spatial laws. Other than that, even I can't see anything. He seems to have merged with the sword and merged with heaven and earth. However, the reason why Li Long was defeated so quickly was because he was too complacent after he displayed the immortal golden body technique, which gave Chen Hao time to react. You must not be careless at that time. Once Chen Hao shows signs of using this technique, you must move to stop him. Don't give him the chance. Yes. Don't worry. My strength far surpasses his. Once I start attacking, I won't give him any chance. I'm just afraid that he still has a hidden trump card. Otherwise, I would have no problem defeating him. Indeed, judging from this kid's expression, it seems like he still has a hidden trump card. Wendao, winning or losing is not a big deal. To ensure that nothing goes wrong, you should not challenge Chen Hao for the time being. Enter the top 10 first. You must enter the third layer of the 7 stars chamber. Alright. Yi Wendao replied. In just 2 battles, Chen Hao had become a formidable opponent in Yi Wendao's heart. Although Yi Wendao did not want to admit it, due to the pressure from Chen Hao, he had no choice but to choose the safe route. Following this, it was Li Yang's turn. This time, Li Yang directly challenged the 9th-ranked disciple. Unfortunately, he did not succeed, and was disqualified. Following this, it was Yi Wendao's turn. Without giving the crowd any time to guess, Yi Wendao immediately chose the 3rd-ranked disciple. It was somewhat out of the crowd's expectations, but considering Chen Hao's strength, it was still within their expectations. After all, the qualification to enter the 7 stars chamber was the most important. At this moment, if Yi Wendao were to challenge Chen Hao directly, he would be disqualified if he failed. That would be a great loss. The reason why he did not choose the 2nd-ranked disciple was because the 2nd-ranked disciple was Li Long, who had been severely injured by Chen Hao and had yet to recover. If he were to challenge Li Long, he would be bullying him. He did not want to challenge him at this moment. Of course, from Yi Wendao's eyes, the crowd understood that he was just trying to be safe. During the top 10 ranking battle, he would undoubtedly challenge Chen Hao. The 10th-ranked disciple who was pushed out once again challenged the 10th-ranked disciple. There was no miracle, and the challenge failed. The top 10 was finally decided. The top 10 ranking battle officially begins. It will start from the 10th rank. The judge said in a deep voice. I give up. The 10th ranked disciple said loudly. After saying this, he flew away from the challenger area. I give up too. Me too. 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th. Until the 4th rank, no one challenged him. Obviously, at this moment, everyone's ranking was already comparable to their strength. I challenge Chen Hao. Boom. Yi Wendao, who was temporarily in 3rd place, said this coldly. His entire body violently caused an explosion of air as he flew to the center of the arena at lightning speed. Whoosh! Chen Hao's calm and indifferent expression flashed with a trace of seriousness and coldness at this moment. He also turned into a stream of light and appeared on the arena. Yi Wendao was waiting for this battle, and so was he. Yi Wendao's powerful strength and terrifying attacks. Although no strong opponent forced him to use his true strength, Chen Hao felt a great threat. It was far from what Li Long could compare to, especially the force that Yi Wendao had. Overbearing force. Force that was filled with killing intent. Force that could tear apart the sky and destroy the sun and moon. Chen Hao, you are indeed very strong. To be exact, I am not confident of winning. As the aura of the two soared, Yi Wendao stared at Chen Hao with a sharp gaze and said, for those who were familiar with Yi Wendao to say such words, it was simply unprecedented for Yi Wendao to say such words. You are also very strong. I am also not confident of winning, Chen Hao said with a slight frown. Therefore you better admit defeat. Otherwise, once the battle starts, I will not be able to control it as I wish, Yi Wendao said coldly. As he spoke, a monstrous and incomparably fierce killing intent spread out from his body. The force that he contained finally and truly released completely. At this moment, just this aura alone made the disciples with weaker cultivations in the entire arena area feel as if they could not breathe. It was as if their hands and feet were completely bound, unable to move in the slightest. No one doubted that if they were to face Yi Wendao at this moment, they would simply be lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They would not have the slightest ability to fight back. This is my Dao, the Dao of killing. After a slight pause, Yi Wendao spoke again. At this moment, his voice was like the explosion of spring thunder, especially the Dao of killing. As soon as he spoke, a substantial essence qi soared into the sky like a smoke signal. Essence, qi, spirit, and force completely merged into one. Second update. Begging for monthly votes, recommendation votes. Chapter 217. What a resolute aura. Yi Wendao, what a martial god. To think that he has his own Dao. Once he enters the Golden Core realm, he will definitely improve tremendously. His future achievements will be limitless. Phew. How strong would our Zhaixing sect be to have a few more disciples like him? Sect Master, Yi Wendao and Chen Hao are super geniuses of our Zhaixing sect. Should we stop them? On the rostrum, the first elder of the inner sect whispered to the sect leader of the star-picking sect. It's fine. If we stop them now, it will hurt their spirit. Let them fight to their heart's content. Nothing will happen, the sect master said with a faint smile. His eyes flickered with admiration as he looked at Yi Wendao and Chen Hao. Yi Wendao didn't think much of it. After all, he had been observing him for a long time. However, Chen Hao had truly exceeded his expectations. Recruiting the runner-up of the 100 Empire ranking had indeed brought honor to the Zhaixing sect. However, no matter how talented a disciple of the 100 Empire ranking was, he was still a disciple from a low-ranked empire. He couldn't do what Fan Fong from the Flying Sword sect had done. Therefore, the sect master had only given out rewards for formality. He hadn't taken it to heart. However, in less than 3 months, Chen Hao had been able to reach such heights. The battle talent he had displayed had truly caught his attention. Chen Hao frowned slightly. He had to admit that Yi Wendao was definitely the most threatening super genius he had ever seen. Even Lung Yihan hadn't reached such heights. Of course, it wasn't that Lung Yihan was inferior to Yi Wendao. It was because Lung Yihan was related to his father, and the nameless old man. This made Chen Hao feel less hostile towards him. At this moment, Yi Wendao was just standing there, giving the crowd the feeling that there was nothing he did not dare to do, that there was no one he did not dare to fight, that there was no one he did not dare to kill. He did as he pleased, lawless. This was a kind of obsession, an obsession that firmly believed that he could defeat everything. It was an unrestrained, audacious obsession. This rock-solid obsession made Yi Wendao's aura exude a sharpness that Chen Hao couldn't shake. Do you mean that there is no victory or defeat, only life and death? Chen Hao frowned, his eyes sharp. Like I said, you're very strong. They could only fight to their heart's content. Who could control it? Life and death might be the final outcome. Yi Wendao emphasized. Even if Yi Wendao wanted to kill Chen Hao, he wouldn't openly declare his intention to do so in front of so many important figures of the star-picking sect. First, he flattered Chen Hao. In fact, it was not a flattery, but a fact. This way, he could act without any scruples. Once he really killed Chen Hao, he would be out of control, or he might really be out of control. In short, this was undoubtedly the best course of action. Indeed. You're so strong that I can't control you. Since that's the case, let's fight to our heart's content. Riches and honor are in the hands of the heavens, life and death are in the hands of fate. There's no need to find too many excuses. My fate is in my own hands, not in the hands of the heavens. It's not too late for you to admit defeat now. I've already made myself clear. I'm not looking for an excuse, I'm just giving you a piece of advice. Is that so? Then let's cut the crap and attack. Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly. There was a trace of disdain on his handsome face as he spoke coldly. Chen Hao had always despised hypocrisy the most. Their relationship was different from the 100 Dynasties ranking. Chen Hao had never thought of going too far. However, at this moment, Yi Wendao clearly didn't have any thoughts of camaraderie. Instead, he had the mentality of killing Chen Hao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said such nonsense. Since that was the case, what did Chen Hao have to worry about? If people respect me, I'll respect them tenfold. If people offend me, I'll repay them 100-fold. His bones contained the coldness and heartlessness of his other self. It was already very rare for him to be able to do this. Otherwise, if it were his other self, he wouldn't have said so much. He would have directly killed. Boom. Boom. As Chen Hao's words left his mouth, the energy and battle intent around the two, who were 300 feet away from each other, immediately exploded without any restraint. Yi Wendao, who was clearly a martial god, actually turned into a blood-red color with an austere aura under the fusion of his force. It was like a blood-red ball of light that frantically spread in all directions, especially in the direction of Chen Hao. It surged forward violently and immediately collided with Chen Hao's colorless energy. Chi-chi-chi-chi. The collision of the two energies gave rise to streams of air currents. The blood-red energy's speed of advance suddenly slowed down. However, it still continued to advance. As for Chen Hao's energy, it was forced back. At this moment, the superiority of the two was immediately apparent. Clearly, Yi Wendao was much stronger than Chen Hao in terms of absolute strength. However, this was also within the crowd's expectations. Chen Hao was only a rank 1 martial god. At least, that was the case in the eyes of the crowd. Even when compared to Li Long, he was much weaker in terms of absolute strength. There was no need to mention Yi Wendao, who was a super genius and a peak rank 9 martial god, who had comprehended the barrier to the golden core. Show me what you've got. Yi Wendao snapped. As he spoke, he suddenly took a step forward. His robe and long hair fluttered in the wind. Instantly, waves of blood were formed around him. A monstrous murderous aura burst out from his body. To Chen Hao's surprise, it was as if he could smell the true scent of blood from the aura. Clang clang. The two immediately drew out their swords from their sheaths. Art of the Sword of Slaughter, the first sword. Yi Wendao was as majestic as the god of slaughter. He slashed downward with his sword from 100 zhang away. The sword intent was ferocious and tyrannical, reversing yin and yang, slashing through the heavens and earth. Like a startled swan in lightning, it enveloped Chen Hao within it. The crisscrossing sword intent formed a giant spinning ball, revolving around Chen Hao at a high speed. In an instant, thousands of cycles had taken place. His first move was so terrifying that all of the spectating disciples gasped in astonishment. Their eyes widened, and they held their breaths. The art of the sword of slaughter was not a secret art of the star-picking sect. It was an inherited secret art that Yi Wendao had obtained from the Sword Lake ruins. Although it was domineering, it was exquisite. Although it was mysterious, it was simple and straightforward. Although it was extremely strong, it contained both hardness and softness. This move was a perfect example of extreme yang producing yin. Furthermore, it was only the first move. Chen Hao was already prepared for Yi Wendao's powerful attack. When his opponent activated his sword intent, Chen Hao felt extreme danger. He had already activated the energy around him to the maximum. He did not reveal any of it, and made the most appropriate response. Drawing a circle with his left hand, Tai Chi fist. Brandishing the sword with his right hand, Tai Chi Yin Yang sword. Multitasking, he executed two secret arts at the same time. Using softness to counter hardness, he fully displayed the profound meaning of strength. In addition, these two secret arts of the martial arts world were supreme defensive secret arts. Just the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword alone was enough to impenetrate the defense around him. As for Tai Chi fist, it was able to utilize the strength of the opponent to its maximum. Ding, 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 ding. Ordinary people could not see Chen Hao's figure in the spinning ball formed by the blood-red sword light. Only the sound of metal clashing could be heard. However, strangely, there was no energy explosion. Furthermore, the sound became more and more frequent. In the end, it was like a long and endless sword hum. Break for me. Chen Haoqing didn't give the crowd too much time to guess. He shouted loudly, break. As the word break came out of his mouth, the sound of explosions rang out. The blood-red sphere of spinning sword light revealed a shocking scene at this moment. The ball was still spinning crazily. However, the rays of blood-red sword light that formed it were like arrows. They separated from the ball continuously. The ball became a launcher and kept shrinking. The rays of sword light turned into arrows and shot towards Yi Wendao at an even more terrifying speed. What was the profound meaning of strength? What was leveraging strength to counter strength? This was it. Explode for me. A hint of surprise flashed in Yi Wendao's eyes, but it quickly turned into endless viciousness. With a thought, the blood-red sword light that was controlled by Chen Hao, who was connected to him in his mind, exploded with a rumble when it was several hundred feet away from him. Yi Wendao thought that Chen Hao would be able to block his first attack. However, he did not expect it to be in this way. One must know that in this world, there was always a chance of survival for any unique skill, ultimate skill, or formation. This was the art of great derivation. It was the miraculous reincarnation of heaven and earth. There was no absolute existence. However, the strength of the Tao of Massacre was to destroy the opponent's life force. It was a killing move, a killing person, and a killing sword. It could cut off everything. In this world, only one could live. Unless Chen Hao used his powerful strength to block his attack and destroy it, there was no way out. However, Chen Hao used the profound meaning of strength to create a chance of survival in a situation where there was no chance of survival. After breaking Yi Wendao's first attack, Chen Hao used the free and unfettered wave treading steps and the solitary sword art in his hand. He suddenly advanced. He did not think that leveraging strength to counter strength would be able to stop Yi Wendao. After all he could do was temporarily control the sword light that did not belong to him. Hiss. So fast. Yi Wendao was shocked again. He did not expect Chen Hao's fleeting figure to be so fast. This was only a fleeting opportunity. However, Chen Hao was able to grasp it. If he were in Yi Wendao's shoes, even he would not be able to grasp this fleeting opportunity. What he didn't know was that the reason Chen Hao was able to seize this opportunity was because his soul perception far surpassed ordinary people, and his reaction speed was extremely fast. It was also because of this latent ability that Chen Hao was able to unleash his strength to the limit. Even if there was only a 10% chance of victory, it was very likely that he would succeed. Chen Hao's fleeting figure suddenly twisted. His incomparably swift and fierce sword slashed violently towards Yi Wendao's head. Although Yi Wendao was shocked, he did not panic. With a cold snort, his figure suddenly shook and disappeared without a trace. At the moment when he disappeared, a cold shout was heard. Slaughter sword art, second sword. Thousands of terrifying sword lights suddenly appeared in the void. They were like a red rain of swords. They fluttered and gently pointed towards Chen Hao. Their strength and aura seemed to be far inferior to the first sword. Chen Hao felt that the dense sword light was like a spring rain that moistened things, soundless and gentle. It was as if he was in a field in the mountains and taking a stroll in the drizzle, and it was intoxicating. However, a strong sense of danger surged from the depths of his heart. First update. Chapter 218. Right at this instant, a sword light that was as dazzling as the scorching sun enlarged in Chen Hao's pupils like a bolt of lightning. Boundless killing intent and sword chi were like a surging ocean that intended to drown Chen Hao and completely strangle him, shocking the heavens and earth and making ghosts and gods weep. It was Chen Hao's first time seeing such a horrifying slaughter sword Dao, and a strong sense of danger made Chen Hao's pupils contract. He focused his mind, and the horrifying sword light in front of him seemed to slow down. Boom! His mind suddenly exploded in his mind, and the energy in his body instantly ignited, crazily pouring into the treasured sword. Wang! Break! In an instant, Chen Hao's figure and the sword suddenly became one. His feet made two sounds as he forcefully inserted himself into the hard ground of the arena, as if he had taken root. But his body and the sword repeatedly shook violently. His figure was like a long steel plate full of elasticity. After being inserted into the ground and suddenly being pulled, the vibrations produced suddenly exploded along with Chen Hao's cold voice. Sword after sword, 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 sword rumble rumble rumble. Continuous explosions resounded throughout the entire arena. Chen Hao's frightening sword light had initially destroyed Yi Wendao's sword light like a hot knife through butter. However, Chen Hao's sword light was like an endless tide. One wave disappeared, and the next wave reappeared. Finally, when it was only a few feet away from Yi Wendao's body, it successfully destroyed Yi Wendao's sword light. The third sword. Without waiting for the sword light to disappear, Yi Wendao's body flashed and instantly turned into a blood-red shadow. He merged with his sword and appeared behind Chen Hao like a ghost. His sword chi was dense and unbreakable. Killing intent was directed at Chen Hao's back. As soon as this sword was released, Yi Wendao's body seemed to have torn apart the void, producing a vast and strange devouring power. A huge blood-red whirlpool was formed with the tip of the sword as the core. All the air, energy, dust, and light were devoured, as if this sword had sucked the void dry. The slaughter sword Dao had a total of 9 swords. It seemed like one sword was being used separately, but the swords were intertwined. One sword retracted, and the other sword rose. The sword intent was endless, and the place where they connected was the only chance of survival for the sword move. The door of life for the first sword move was the door of death for the second sword move. This was the heaven-defying sword move that dared to claim to be able to cut off the only chance of survival between the heavens and earth. Without amazing talent, it was impossible to obtain the inheritance, let alone master it. This was completely heaven-defying, truly heaven-defying. One sword, one man killing everything fearlessly and unstoppably. Moreover, each sword move was more terrifying than the previous one. Chen Hao had long felt the terror of Yi Wendao. However, when they actually fought, Chen Hao was still shocked. Such a ferocious and domineering sword move had caused Chen Hao to be unable to fight back. And now, the third sword move was coming. All the air was sucked dry, and the space collapsed along with the sword light. Chen Hao had a terrifying feeling that he was going to be devoured by the sword light. In this instant, Chen Hao did not dare to hesitate. He could also vaguely see through the concept of the slaughter sword Dao. If he continued to defend passively, his opponent's force would become stronger and stronger. The only thing he could do was to use violence to curb violence. He did not care if his opponent was alive or dead. He would just kill him with one blow. Only by doing so would he be able to cut off his opponent's continuous sword intent. Only by doing so would he be able to take the initiative. At this moment, when everyone was breaking out in cold sweat for Chen Hao, when the third elder Meng Xianggang was feeling proud, and when the first elder Wu Zichuan was feeling anxious, Chen Hao let out a long roar that shook the heavens and earth. Battle intent, a naked battle intent that looked down on the heavens and earth, finally bloomed from Chen Hao's body once again. It had been a long time. Ever since Chen Hao's soul had fused, rushed out of the Xiao family, and stepped into the Royal New Show Hall, he had never met such a strong opponent. No matter who, no matter what, he was able to make the most appropriate counterattack with precise calculations and analysis. But now, Chen Hao seemed to have returned to the time when he had not fused with his soul, and was bullied by Xiao Jihan, who was also Dongfang Han's lackey. He no longer cared about life and death. Peng. Battle intent overflowed into the sky. Essence Qi was like smoke that tore through the sky. Peng peng. At the same time, two loud sounds exploded under Chen Hao's feet. Instantly, two strangely shaped, huge pits appeared on the stage. Chen Hao's entire person had fused with his sword. Under the stimulation of the intertwining power, he was like a high-speed spinning diamond. His essence, qi, and spirit condensed into one, causing the air, the energy of the heavens and earth, and the dust particles to spin with his body at a high speed. It actually produced an aura similar to Yi Wenwen's qi. What shocked everyone was that Chen Hao, who had fused with his sword, actually turned into a spinning stream of light and rushed towards the core of Yi Wenwen's terrifying whirlpool sword light, which was also the sword tip. Death Gate. This was the real death gate of Yi Wenwen's sword. Not to mention the experts on the main platform, even the lowest level cultivators in the arena area knew that the strongest attack of Yi Wenwen's sword was at the core of the whirlpool. Even an idiot would know that it was the sword tip with the strongest power. You're courting death. Seeing Chen Hao do this, Yi Wenwen's expression instantly flashed with excitement. If Chen Hao completely surpassed him in terms of realm and strength, this would undoubtedly be the easiest and most direct way to defeat him. But Chen Hao was not. Regardless of realm or strength, he was a few streets away from him. What was the difference between this and suicide? Almost at the same time, Great Elder Wu Zichuan suddenly jumped up. Obviously, Wu Zichuan already knew what he was about to face. Countless cries of surprise erupted from the entire arena area. But a vigorous and unparalleled energy suddenly covered Wu Zichuan's body. Wu Zichuan almost cursed out loud, but when he saw the person who released the energy, he stopped himself in his throat. The sect leader did not even look at him. Instead, his eyes flashed like lightning and focused on Chen Hao. There was actually a trace of shock on his face. This kind of shock was definitely not the shock of seeing Chen Hao rush to his death, but the shock of discovering a new continent with a faint surprise. Could it be that Chen Hao can block this sword? Wu Zichuan was shocked in his heart. His gaze quickly turned to the arena. It was a long time to describe, but in fact it was only a moment of sparks. At this moment, under the violent impact of the two people, who were 100 zhang away, directly met in the air. Chen Hao, whose battle intent had risen to the extreme, did not realize that at this moment, the 5 types of energy in his 5 internal organs, under his obsession and madness, were rotating at a terrifying speed. Green qi, red qi, white qi, black qi, blue qi, yellow qi. The inheritance power of the 5 divine beasts in his 5 internal organs exploded on its own. Metal lung, wood liver, water kidney, fire heart, earth spleen. Metal lung, water kidney, water heart. The inheritance of the 5 divine beasts Heart fire, liverwood, the azure dragon's tenacious vitality, the white tiger's fierce attack, the vermilion bird's sky-burning anger, the black tortoise's rock-solid body, the Qilin's mountain-toppling strength, and Chen Hao's fierce attack, which had merged his lifetime of martial arts skills into one. At this moment, just how powerful was it? Boom. Capture. At the same time as the explosion that shook the heavens and the earth, a clear and loud shout suddenly erupted from the platform. A large hand appeared out of thin air above Yi Wendao's head. Like an eagle catching a chick, it directly grabbed Yi Wendao in its hand. It was also at this moment that a rotating, indestructible, and extremely condensed sword light brazenly drilled into the large hand. Chi chi chi. The large hand emitted bright sparks, but it was as solid as a rock and did not have the slightest bit of damage. Other than the experts on the platform, as well as Lung Yihan and a few other disciples with strong senses, no one saw clearly what had happened. The only thing they saw was Yi Wendao's terrifying whirlpool of sword light dissipating with the huge explosion. Then they saw the large hand emitting sparks. Before the crowd could react to what was going on, a figure that everyone looked up to had already appeared on the arena. He stood there with a smile on his face, and his expression was calm as he stared at Chen Hao, who was still spinning at high speed. Break! Chi! Ah! Caught off guard, Chen Hao, who was spinning, let out a soft shout. The aura around him strangely changed at this moment. The figure that stood there with a smile and a composed expression was slightly surprised, yet he didn't stop Chen Hao. He knew very well that Chen Hao was still immersed in his insane battle intent at this moment, and only allowing Chen Hao to execute this formidable move to the limit to his heart's content before stopping himself was for the best. However, what this figure did not expect was that just as Chen Hao said the word break, the large hand that he had formed was actually pierced through. Like tofu, it did not destroy his energy at all, and there was no collision of energy. It was directly pierced through. The calm and composed figure, who had not been able to shock him for many years, actually let out a cry of surprise and doubt in front of thousands of disciples at this moment. At the same time, he controlled his divine sense and sent Yi Wendao, who was in his hand, flying into the distance at lightning speed. Even though his reaction was as fast as lightning, Yi Wendao did not manage to escape in one piece. A bloody hole had already appeared in his shoulder. Ah! Impossible! Impossible! My massacre sword principle will never lose. Impossible! Yi Wendao shouted crazily as blood spurted out from his mouth. The shocked figure pointed at the void and a few rays of light entered Yi Wendao's body. Immediately, the spurting blood stopped, and Yi Wendao lost consciousness and slowly fell to the edge of the platform. Everyone stared at this scene in shock. They stared at the figure, as well as Chen Hao, who had stopped spinning and was standing proudly with a look of surprise and confusion on his face as he stared at the figure. Very good. Very good. Chen Hao, you were actually able to break through the vacuum palm formed by my golden core energy. With such talent, you are the first in our Zhaixing sect. Ha! The figure said with a red face. At the end, he laughed loudly. Countless people, especially the big shots on the rostrum, looked at each other in dismay. Second update. At least 3 updates tomorrow. Strive for 4. Monthly votes, recommendation votes. Chapter 219. Motherfucker. I've lost so much face this time. The old man is the leader of a sect. It's not easy for him to make a move in front of thousands of disciples, but he was defeated by this brat. That figure said awkwardly in his heart. The only thing worth rejoicing about was that Yi Wendao's life was saved. Otherwise, he would have lost all his face. This figure was none other than the leader of the star-picking sect, Yuan Tairan. As the leader of a sect, he had almost failed to save an outer sect disciple. How could he not lose face? However, even though he was embarrassed, his shock and admiration for Chen Hao were real. Even he couldn't understand how Chen Hao had done it. His sharp senses told him that Chen Hao's sword had already broken through the boundaries of common sense, surpassing the limits of energy. It seemed to have entered the creation realm, which even he hadn't reached. However, that was impossible. The only explanation was that Chen Hao had comprehended some kind of secret technique that could prevent energy from detecting and avoiding it. I didn't lose. I've only used the third sword of the massacre sword Dao. The fourth sword has already been formed. Leader, I didn't lose. Yi Wendao's unwavering faith actually woke him up in a short period of time. He broke free from the treatment of an old man, and flew towards Chen Hao and the sect master, shouting loudly in the void. His voice was filled with unwillingness and even anger. Yuan Tairan frowned slightly. When Chen Hao's sword had pierced through Yi Wendao's sword light, he had clearly determined that Yi Wendao would die. As for Chen Hao, he couldn't be sure because Yi Wendao had indeed formed the fourth sword at that moment. In the end, it was very likely that they would both die together. Therefore, he had no choice but to make a move at the critical moment. Both of them were rare geniuses. If they died in the sect, it would be the biggest joke in the world. After pondering for a moment, Yuan Tairan waved his hand to separate Chen Hao and Yi Wendao. He said, I won't interfere in this battle. If Yi Wendao dies, Chen Hao won't live either. It's nothing more than a split second. You're all rare geniuses of our sect. It's unwise to fight with your lives on the line. That's why I'm taking action. The vacuum giant palm separated the two of you, but it also imprisoned Yi Wendao. Therefore, this battle is decided to be a draw. No one is allowed to object. Yuan Tairan regained the demeanor of a sect master as he spoke in a domineering and straightforward manner. After he finished speaking, he glanced at the great elder of the outer sanctum, Wu Zichuan, and flew back to his seat. The 7 profound gourd that was in his hands flew away just like that. Naturally, Wu Zichuan was a little unhappy, but since the sect master had already decided, he could only accept it. Furthermore, even though he didn't see through Zhang Xian's true intentions, he knew that Zhang Xian had always been an upright person. However, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. The names of this year's 7 Stars Paradise and the top 10 rankings have all been determined. You can collect your rewards at the welfare hall of your mountain peak. 3 days later, at noon, please gather 30 disciples at the star-picking peak. Zhaixing Peak, the highest peak of the Zhaixing sect, where the sect leader resided and cultivated. It was also the core of the star-picking sect's array formation. The entrance to the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven was on the star-picking peak. Chen Hao, just you wait. Even though we may not be able to determine the victor today, I, Yi Wendao, will definitely repay you 100 times for the humiliation of this sword strike. As Chen Hao flew towards Tantai Lian and the rest, Yi Wendao's cold voice rang in Chen Hao's ears. Chen Hao's body twitched slightly as his lips curled into a smile. He transmitted his voice. If not for the sect leader's intervention, you would have been a corpse by now and I would still be fine. Of course, if you want to challenge me, I welcome you at any time. I would also like to see the next few strikes of the massacre sword principle. You would be fine? If not for the sect leader's intervention, how could I have taken your sword strike? You would be a corpse now and I would still be fine. The massacre sword principle connects the sword strikes and each strike is stronger than the previous one. Don't think that you can withstand my 4th strike just because you broke my 3rd strike. Yi Wendao said coldly. Then we'll see who's stronger. Chen Hao smiled and cut off the communication. There was no point in saying more. Both of them were arrogant people who would not give up until they saw the end of the world. Now it was Yuan Tairan who had become the target of their blame. Yi Feishue's figure flashed and appeared in front of Chen Hao, who had just landed. She smiled and said, Chen Hao, congratulations. Congratulations, junior brother. Dongfang Ting still could not believe that Chen Hao could improve to such a level. Her eyes were filled with surprise and disbelief as she spoke. Junior brother Chen Hao, I did not expect you to be so powerful. A few of the inner disciples who had trained with Chen Hao came to congratulate him. Senior brother Chen Hao, you are the pride of the disciples of the 100 Empire sect. Congratulations. Even some of the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking were no exception. They were from the same batch as Chen Hao and Chen Hao knew them. However, most of them were a few batches older than him, and he did not know them. Chen Hao returned their greetings with cupped fists. After chatting with Dongfang Ting and Yi Feishue for a while, Chen Hao returned to the first peak of the outer sect with Tantai Lian and Leng Yihan. Under the strange gazes of Li Yifeng, Yang Fan and I Jianpain and even Tantai Lian, Chen Hao had no choice but to bring Lung Yihan, who wanted to talk to him alone, into his palace. Go to the cultivation room. I'm going to the cultivation room? Yes. The person who wants to talk to you is not me. You will definitely have a little surprise. Go. Lung Yihan's lips curled up slightly, his eyes full of mystery. Chen Hao frowned slightly. This palace was his, and all the restrictions were under his control. However, at this moment, other than Lung Yihan, he could not sense the presence of anyone else. However, Lung Yihan had no reason to lie to him. The only explanation was that the person who came was an expert. Moreover, it was an unimaginable expert who could deceive countless important people in the Jiaxing sect. After Lung Yihan finished speaking, he ignored Chen Hao's gaze and sat lazily on the chair. He crossed his legs and closed his eyes. In the past, Chen Hao did not notice because Lung Yihan's eyes were too sharp. Anyone who looked at him would be frightened by his eyes. However, at this moment, what made Chen Hao shiver again was that this guy's eyelashes were longer than the average woman's. Transvestite. Chen Hao hurriedly avoided his gaze and cursed in his heart. He took a deep breath and walked to the cultivation room. Who could it be? It seemed that other than Lung Yihan's master, Chen Hao could not think of anyone else. However, even if it was Lung Yihan's master, strictly speaking, he did not have much interaction with him. It was not a surprise at all. At most, it was a surprise. Creak. Chen Hao gently pushed open the door to the cultivation room. Ah, father. You. A figure directly reflected in Chen Hao's eyes. No matter what, he would never have thought that Lung Yihan's so-called small surprise was his father. Extremely shocked, Chen Hao directly called out. However, Chen Hao, who wanted to rush to his father's side, suddenly realized something and stopped abruptly. His expression changed dramatically. Father. After hearing Chen Hao's call, the figure's expression changed dramatically. Although it was still Chen Hao's father, the muttering, trembling voice was hoarse, low, and filled with endless sadness and sadness. His eyes stared blankly at Chen Hao, whose expression had changed greatly. His body trembled, his breathing was disorderly, but what was even more disorderly was his eyes. You. At this moment, Chen Hao only said one word and stopped. He wanted to ask who the other party was, but when the words reached his mouth, he could not bear to ask. What kind of eyes were those? Chen Hao had never seen a person's eyes that could be so sad and sad. He had also never seen anyone's eyes that could be filled with such deep emotions like the sea. At this moment, Chen Hao's mind was filled with Lung Yihan's words about his master. Originally, he had a slightly disrespectful guess about his father, but at this moment, it gradually became clear and surfaced. Although the figure in front of him still looked like his father, he already knew who it was. There was no need to ask. He could not bear to ask. Crystal tears flowed from the father's eyes. The father slowly stretched out his hand and reached for Chen Hao's face. Chen Hao did not move. He just looked at the hand that was exactly the same as his father's, exactly the same hand. Even the palm lines were exactly the same, without the slightest difference. The palm gently touched Chen Hao's face. It was obviously his father's rough hand, but when it touched Chen Hao's face, Chen Hao felt a trace of softness, soft as if boneless and cold little hands. Is he okay? A hoarse, low voice came from the father's mouth. That voice was full of complex emotions. Even if Chen Hao's heart was like a rock, at this moment, there was a kind of sadness that pierced through his heart like a needle. Master stayed in the secular world for more than 100 years for him. Lung Yihan's words flashed in Chen Hao's mind at this moment. 100 years of searching. How many 100 years could there be in a person's life? Even in the cultivation world, how many cultivators could there be that defied the heavens? Youth was easy to age. Chen Hao would not blame his father. Although he did not have any emotional experience, he knew that love was mutual. A mysterious father and an equally mysterious mother who did not know it were the true love. He did not know what kind of relationship the figure in front of him had with his parents, but he knew that it was definitely a heartbreaking and touching love story. Immortal couples were parents, and the person in front of him was not a heartbroken person. After all, I am not the person who knows him best. Even you can see the flaw. Seeing that Chen Hao did not answer, the father said sadly. The corners of his mouth were bitter, and there was an indescribable loneliness. No, Senior. Your imitation is very, very good. I can't tell the difference at all. The reason I can tell is because Father never stands. Never stands? What's wrong with him? He's fine. It's just that in the secular world, his legs are crippled. It's that he doesn't want to stand. It's not that he can't stand, Chenhao said. As he spoke, the father in front of him slowly returned to his original body. He was dressed in a black robe and a black bamboo hat that covered his face. His body was thin and small, and he was half a head shorter than Chenhao. First update, please buy monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Thank you. Chapter 220. He looked exactly like the legendary nameless old man. Senior, can you tell me what is going on between you and my parents? Chenhao mustered up his courage and asked. The nameless old man stared at Chenhao through the black veil. After a moment he said, You are their adopted son? Chenhao was slightly taken aback. Your bloodline doesn't have their aura, and your appearance is very different. The nameless old man explained when he saw Chenhao's expression. She dared to say it because she believed that Chenhao's parents would not hide this from Chenhao. Moreover, with the original information about Chenhao, in her opinion, it was very likely that Chenhao was an orphan adopted by his parents. But when Chenhao heard the nameless old man's words, his mind turned. This was an elder worthy of sympathy and respect. Because of his own negligence, he exposed the existence of his parents. Naturally, it was impossible to hide it. But as pitiful as it was, Chenhao was even more unwilling to see his parents be affected because of her. After pondering for a moment, Chenhao said, I was adopted by my parents. I also have a younger brother and a younger sister. They are my parents' biological children. They are 5 years younger than me. As Chenhao spoke, he took out a wooden carving of a family from his storage space and handed it to the nameless old man. Before I came to the cultivation world, my father told me that if someone came looking for me because of my carving skills, I must not expose him. But I didn't do it. Senior, they are doing well now, so I hope. Chenhao wanted to say something, but when he saw the nameless old man's thin body begin to tremble again, he could not say anything. Do you know who I am? At this moment, the nameless old man looked up at Chenhao and asked with a trembling voice. What surprised Chenhao even more was that the nameless old man suddenly lifted the bamboo hat on his head. His long, snow-white hair cascaded down her pale face, which had never seen the light of day all year round, was sparkling and translucent like jade. There was not a single wrinkle on her face. If it were not for the fact that her arched eyebrows had turned white, just by looking at her face alone, one would think that she was at most in her 20s. But what really shocked Chenhao was that this face was actually 90% similar to his mother's. Even though their temperaments had become completely different due to their respective encounters. However, his eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, and face shape were astonishingly identical. Only his skin, hair, and aura were completely different. However, when Chenhao captured the traces of life auras, they were completely the same. At the very least, his mother when she was young was probably the same as the nameless old man in front of him. Other than that, what made Chenhao's heart tremble was the nameless old man's gaze. Sadness. Endless sadness, and desolation. I'm your father's first wife, his first Dao partner. Did you know that? I'm your mother's sister, your biological sister. Did you know that? I've never blamed them, because it's not their fault. It's fate, and it's also my fault. Don't worry, I won't look for them again. I only hope that when you see them again, you can tell them that I also have his flesh and blood. I originally wanted to find him and let him see his flesh and blood being born with his own eyes. But after more than 100 years, the child in my belly can't wait any longer. The nameless old man's words were like bolts of thunder exploding in Chenhao's mind. He had thought of all the possibilities, but in the end he did not expect the situation to be so complicated. Fate's fault. What kind of fate would produce such a tortuous past? They don't want to see me, they're afraid to see me, it's fine. I won't see them again in this life. But for his flesh and blood, I hope that he can fulfill his responsibility as a father. I'll trouble you to give this to him when you see him, the nameless old man said emotionally. As she spoke, a pure and terrifying energy abruptly appeared in front of her, accompanied by a mysterious fluctuation of divine sense. Immediately, it turned into a blue crystal that was completely condensed from energy and divine sense, floating in front of Chen Hao. "Ihan, let's go." When Chen Hao held the crystal in his hand in a daze, the nameless old man had already disappeared in front of him. A hoarse and sad voice came from outside the cultivation room. "Master, did you ask clearly? Let's go, Master will send you back." Senior. Chen Hao turned around and rushed out of the cultivation room. But the nameless old man and Lung Yihan's figures had strangely disappeared in front of him. So ruthless. Chen Hao stood there in a daze for a few minutes. Suddenly, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit sounded in his mind. So ruthless? What's so ruthless? Erasing a part of her own memory with her own hands. Don't you think it's ruthless? Sigh. Since ancient times, too much love leads to too much regret. You don't have to waste your time looking. This crystal is a part of her memory, condensed from magic power and spiritual sense. Other than your father, I'm afraid no one can open it. No matter how powerful their divine ability is, they can only destroy it and not read it, said the treasure-hunting sword spirit. You mean to say that she separated her memory and merged it into this crystal? Yes. And she sacrificed at least 500 years of her lifespan. She should be in the creation realm with only 1,000 years of lifespan. What a pity. Speak clearly, Chen Hao said with a frown. At this moment, Chen Hao not only felt sympathy and doubt for the nameless old man. At the same time, he also had a lot of doubts about the treasure-hunting sword spirit. Every time he felt that he was just SOSO, his knowledge seemed to increase to a level that would shock him again. Just like what he said now. Simply put, she should be close to 200 years old now, extracting the memories of her soul, and sacrificing her lifespan to condense this memory soul crystal took at least 500 years or even more. Just this alone isn't fatal. The most fatal thing is that once anyone's soul and memories are extracted, their soul will be incomplete, and they will be unable to improve their cultivation for the rest of their lives. This also means that she probably doesn't have much time left. Moreover, because her soul is incomplete, it will directly dissipate after death and be unable to enter the cycle of reincarnation. It can be considered as the destruction of her soul. Ruthless, and truly pitiful. Chen Hao's eyes opened wide, and he was shocked to the extreme, especially when he thought of the last words the nameless old man said. I won't see you again in this lifetime. An indescribable feeling surged in his heart. She did it. Because she extracted all the memories related to her father. Otherwise, how could she do it? How unforgettable was it to wander the world searching for him for over 100 years? Perhaps she knew that she couldn't do it without doing this, or perhaps she didn't want to endure this mental torture any longer. So she resolutely chose the neutral method. Since ancient times, excessive love leads to regret, and this regret is endless. Even though Chen Hao hadn't experienced a vigorous and emotional love, at this moment, he felt as if he was treading on thin ice, trembling with fear. Especially when he thought of Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi Tantai Lian. Could it be that there's no way to have the best of both worlds? Polygamy in this world there are no restrictions. And she was also father's first wife, so why did father do this? Mother was her younger sister, so shouldn't they be happy? Her body and soul were destroyed just like that. I'm afraid that even her parents wouldn't want to see that, right? Chen Hao was at a loss. Don't let your mother know, and don't ask her. Even if you ask her, she wouldn't know, Sai. At this moment, Chen Hao suddenly remembered what his father said to him before he stepped into the world of cultivation. Mother is also from the world of cultivation, and was once an expert like her, right? Why doesn't mother know anything? Why? Could it be that she was the same as her? A wave of complete coldness made Chen Hao break out in cold sweat. Who was right? Who was wrong? Who was ruthless? Especially when he thought of his mother's face, which was much older than the nameless old man, Chen Hao's heart tightened. Is there any way? Is there any way to fix the damaged soul? Chen Hao anxiously and coldly asked in his mind. The method is very simple. Give this memory soul crystal to her. If she is willing to absorb it, She will naturally recover. What if this memory soul crystal is gone? Then it's basically considered that there's no way. What do you mean basically? Speak. This. I can only ask that family, that senior in your mind. The treasure-hunting sword spirit originally wanted to say that guy, but when he said the word family, he changed it to that senior. Just now these things were told to you by him? Cough cough, what did he tell me? I knew it from the start. It's just that I just remembered, this, Chen Hao, I always thought that I had escaped from his control. But now, it seems that I am still his prisoner. Some things that belong to me are all with him. I am also damaged, Sai. Why didn't he communicate with me directly? Chen Hao asked coldly. Your cultivation is not enough. Step into the golden core realm. At least, we are all weapon spirits, and the inherited divine beast is also a spirit body. Communication between us is very simple, but you are different. Before you refine his body, you will not be able to communicate with him. Golden core realm good. Tell him that I will use the fastest speed to step into the golden core realm. It's useless to have an unstable foundation. You can't advance just for the sake of advancing. These 3 months, you advance because of a fortuitous encounter. Although your foundation is solid, it is ultimately not as solid as relying on your own comprehension and tempering. Otherwise, even if you advance to the golden core realm, you may not be able to temper him. This is my luck. Every step of my advancement has been solid and solid. Just wait. Chen Hao said arrogantly. Once he finished speaking, he directly cut off the connection with the probing sword spirit, and carefully put the blue crystal into his storage space. He did not attempt to examine the secrets within. This was given to his father by the nameless old man. He did not have the right to examine it, or else it would be a blasphemy. Similarly, he did not have the ability to examine it. According to the probing sword spirit, even experts above the creation realm could not examine it. At most, they could destroy it. Taking a deep breath, Chen Hao walked quickly to the cultivation room. He did not care about the final outcome, but he would not allow his mother and the nameless old man, or more accurately his aunt or aunt, to be destroyed just like that. Second update, monthly vote, recommendation vote. Dark Mountain, continue writing. There will be more at night. Chapter 221. No way. He's still not coming out? It's already been 6 hours. Li Yifeng said. Chen Hao, who was immersed in cultivation, did not know that Li Yifeng, Yang Fan and I Jianping, and Tantai Lian were still waiting outside his palace. 6 hours, a whole 6 hours. No matter how secretive the two of them were, they should be done, right? Especially Chen Hao's feelings towards Lung Yihan. Everyone knew that if they could avoid 1 minute of contact, they would avoid 1 minute of contact. Not to mention this kind of private, secret communication. Could it be? Chen Hao has been conquered? Li Yifeng looked at the three of them, and said with a strange expression. Possibly, Yang Fan said. Yeah, I think so too, and I Jianping said. The three of them had strange expressions, and no one looked at Tantai Lian. Humph. Tantai Lian looked at the three of them fiercely and snorted. If you want me to knock, just say it. Ahem. Little Lian, there's something I've wanted to say to you for a long time. Li Yifeng coughed awkwardly and looked at Tantai Lian. Say it? I didn't even block your mouth. Tantai Lian said. Tantai Lian used to be a weak and obedient junior sister in front of the three of them. She had also been obsessed with the idea of borrowing the strength of the three of them to pass through the dangerous endless sea. Although only Li Yifeng, who was romantic and unrestrained, had followed her, they had only been together for a short period of time. But now, Chen Hao was not here, and Tantai Lian had become the big sister instead. It could not be helped. Strength was everything. The three of them really could not compare to Tantai Lian's strength. Moreover, as everyone got to know each other, Tantai Lian was no longer the obedient junior sister. At least in front of the three of them, she was very domineering. Li Yifeng. Yang Fan frowned and grabbed Li Yifeng's hand. Without a doubt, Yang Fan knew Li Yifeng's weakness the best. Therefore, when he heard Li Yifeng's words, he suddenly felt that something was wrong, extremely wrong. Enai Jianping also knew about Li Yifeng's affairs, but he was not as close as Yang Fan and Li Yifeng, so it was inconvenient for him to intervene. However, he looked at Li Yifeng with a strange gaze. Fuck. What kind of look is that? Li Yifeng shook off Yang Fan's hand and glared at the two of them. After he finished speaking, he looked at Tantai Lian. He didn't care about the meaning in their eyes and said even more overbearingly, "Little Lian, make a mental barrier and block their ears. I'll talk to you alone." "There's no need for that. Speak." Tantai Lian didn't think much of it, but when she heard Li Yifeng's words, she blushed and frowned. Seeing this scene, Li Yifeng was immediately depressed. Motherfucker, if Enai Jianping misunderstood, then so be it. If Yang Fan misunderstood, then so be it. Even Tantai Lian misunderstood. Could it be that her character is that bad? Do you think I don't know that I shouldn't bully my friend's wife? What's more, I'm only a playboy, but I'm never a pervert. Li Yifeng's heart was filled with depression. He was so angry that he didn't care anymore. He said, "Fine, I'll say it. Simplify the complicated and make a long story short. Comprehend as much as you can. What I want to say is, a man chasing a woman is like a mountain separating them. How do you understand this sentence? Just like Yang Fan, who wouldn't even stand out in a crowd, if he were to chase a woman, it would be very difficult. There are at least 100 mountains separating them, and each mountain is like the star-picking peak." Li Yifeng pointed at Yang Fan's nose and said. Yang Fan, who was originally a little worried, was embarrassed when he heard Li Yifeng's attack. He said, That's. It's good that you know your limits. And you, Enai Jianping, a taciturn gourd who can't speak a word, is no better than Yang Fan." Tantai Lian frowned slightly. She seemed to understand what Li Yifeng wanted to say, but she didn't. It had to be said that other than Li Yifeng, Tantai Lian, Yang Fan, and Enai Jianping really didn't have any experience with men and women. At least Tantai Lian had some understanding. Yang Fan and Enai Jianping were at a loss. The two of them didn't have any thoughts about women. If they were stupid, they would be even more stupid than pigs. As for a girl chasing a guy, there's only a thin layer of paper between them. Phew, one breath, and it's broken. The key is whether the girl can let go of the reservations in her heart. As long as she can, then she only needs to take this step. It's really very simple, especially for a girl like Xiaolian, who has both looks and talent. What are you talking about? Tantai Lian's face suddenly turned red, and she glared at Li Yifeng. Not bad, you understand. If I were you at this time, I would immediately rush in and help Chenhao solve the problem. Well, at least show enough affection. Anyway, in the arena area, didn't Chenhao deliberately do that? We're all on the same side, so you don't have to be shy. Although your cultivation is high, you're still a little sister in our hearts. I can guess a little about Chenhao's thoughts. Since he dared to use you to tell Leng Yihan, who is 100% gay, that he likes women, then it's impossible that he doesn't have feelings for you. What do you think? Besides, you've received the inheritance. Basically, your reputation and whatnot. Cough cough, we may believe it, but others won't. I seem to have said too much. Let's simplify. Go. I'm not going. She originally wanted to knock on the door. But now, after hearing what Li Yifeng said, Tantai Lian was so embarrassed that she wanted to hide in a crack. How would she dare to go? Alas. Be reserved. In a single thought, heaven and earth are separated. Whether it's true or not that Chenhao already has someone in his heart, as long as the rice is not cooked. Even if it is, you're standing on the starting line of a fair competition. Alas, women are too prideful. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to go to hell. Your self-esteem is really harmful. Yang Fan, Enai Jianping, you have to apologize to me and treat me to a drink. Let's go. Li Yifeng muttered to himself as if he had experienced it before. He was just short of stroking his beard because he didn't. After he finished speaking, he directly pulled one of them with each hand and soared into the sky. What are you doing? Can't we apologize and drink wine later? Enai Jianping frowned but did not resist. Pig, we're here. How can little Lian do that? Don't look, let's go. Her cultivation is higher. If she wants to peak, she has to go further. Oh, I see. Young Fan said. Li Yifeng looked at the two pigs whose cultivation was higher than his. While he was depressed, he could not help but feel a sense of superiority. Seeing the three people quickly disappear, Tantai Lian's red face gradually returned to normal. However, her heartbeat was strangely fast, and even her breathing was a little rushed. To enter or not to enter? A woman chasing a man is like a piece of paper. Be reserved. Paradise. Fair competition. Li Yifeng's words kept ringing in Tantai Lian's mind. She could not help but fall into a struggle. On one hand, it was her self-esteem that was causing trouble. On the other hand, it was Li Yifeng's warning. How should she choose? If she chose Li Yifeng's method, she would lose her pride. However, she might get Chen Hao, who had ruined her reputation. If she chose her pride, her reputation would still be ruined. But it was more likely that she would lose Chen Hao. He had seen her, and she also had the inheritance of the phoenix. Just these 2 points alone made her have no way out. Moreover, what she really cared about were not these 2 points. When Chen Hao had enlightened her and saved her life, some subtle emotions had already been born unknowingly. She still remembered how she felt when Chen Hao said in front of her that he was doing it for a girl. However, it was so difficult for her to sacrifice her pride and reserve. Although she felt that Li Yifeng was right, she still felt that it was a little inappropriate. The inappropriate part was not her, but Chen Hao's character. No matter how much a man understood a man, he would not understand a man as well as a woman who fell in love with him. She was very afraid. Afraid that when she lost her pride and reserve, Chen Hao would look down on her with his character. Then there would really be no hope. I can do this. After a full hour, Tantai Lian, who was struggling in her heart, suddenly had a light in her eyes. With a compromise, she took a step forward and walked resolutely toward the door of Chen Hao's palace. Phew! Far away, Li Yifeng and the other two who were hiding in the void breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. The moment she knocked on the door of the palace, Tantai Lian's expression became extremely calm, neither cold nor hot. She forced herself to control her heartbeat and breathing, maintaining an absolutely calm posture. Creak! The door of the palace slowly opened, and Chen Hao appeared in front of her with a trace of doubt. Little Lian? Why are you still here? What's the matter? Chen Hao asked in a daze. They said you need help. Don't you need help? Tantai Lian was slightly surprised. She scanned the interior of Chen Hao's palace with her divine sense, and did not find Leng Yihan's aura. However, Leng Yihan's cultivation was extremely high, and he had abnormal talent. Tantai Lian was not sure, and could only transmit her voice. She pretended to be calm with a trace of indifference. I forgot. Leng Yihan left long ago. You guys still have a conscience, haha. Chen Hao smiled slightly. The fluctuating emotions from 6 hours ago seemed to have completely disappeared at this moment. His black eyes shone brightly. Left? Why didn't we see him? He's abnormal. Naturally, he has an abnormal way of leaving. Come in, Chen Hao said and actually invited Tantai Lian in. If he's gone, why should I go in? Come in and you'll know. Chen Hao saw that Tantai Lian did not move and directly pulled her into the palace. Creak. The door of the palace suddenly closed, and at the same time, the restriction of the palace was activated. What do you want? Tantai Lian's face was red as she broke free from Chen Hao's hand and said, Haha, you have to take it even if you don't want it. Chen Hao stared at Tantai Lian with a trace of a smile on his face. What? The inheritance of the phoenix, Chen Hao said. Tantai Lian's face instantly turned red as she said, I said I don't want male and female intercourse. I didn't make it clear to you last time. I have a special method that doesn't require the fusion of yin and yang. Is this okay? Chen Hao said. No. In short, I don't want it. You can't force me, Tantai Lian said firmly. She was glaring at Chen Hao, and her expression had changed. Third update. From 6 in the morning until now, I haven't moved except for eating. After dinner, I'll continue to write with all my might. There's a fourth update. Brothers and sisters, can you vote for Zhang Yu? Chapter 222. This is for your own good. Chen Hao frowned and said, "What are you afraid of?" Chen Hao was a little confused. Didn't he say that he didn't need yin and yang fusion? Wasn't that very clear? Could it be that he was lying to her? But Tantai Lian's face was pale, and her delicate body was trembling. Was it that scary? What am I afraid of? You just want to cut ties with me, right? Then you can take Phoenix away. I don't want anyone else. Tantai Lian looked at Chen Hao's fierce appearance and immediately felt her blood boil. She did not give in at all. Cut ties? What are you thinking all day? Don't talk nonsense with me. You have to take it whether you want it or not. Chen Hao grabbed Tantai Lian overbearingly and directly activated his tyrannical energy. His hands were like iron pincers, afraid that Tantai Lian would resist. But, unexpectedly, Tantai Lian didn't struggle and said, "It hurts. Let me go, I want it." Chen Hao was slightly stunned and let go of his hand. He saw that Tantai Lian's snow-white wrist had turned red. He frowned and stared at Tantai Lian's eyes. He couldn't understand. Women were really strange creatures. "What are you looking at?" Tantai Lian took 2 steps back and asked, feeling that Chen Hao's gaze was strange, and the aura on his body seemed to have suddenly changed strangely, as if it had completely disappeared. Tantai Lian took 2 steps back and asked. Her keen perception made her have a strange feeling, as if she was completely naked in front of Chen Hao, and there were no more secrets to hide. This feeling made her uneasy. Chen Hao regained his calm expression, and the anger on his face completely disappeared. Facing a woman he couldn't understand, Chen Hao finally tried to sense her life trajectory to get the answer he wanted. Ever since he met Tantai Lian, he had never tried to understand or analyze her. He deliberately wanted to avoid some things. But now that he had reached this step, he had to try to understand some things. The magical carving technique didn't disappoint him. The result was just like when he was carving Xiaomei's eyes. He couldn't immediately carve them because it was a kind of emotion that he couldn't bear for the time being. Am I that good? Good. Who said you're good? I've never felt that. Tantai Lian turned her face away, not daring to look directly at Chen Hao's penetrating eyes. She was extremely flustered, but she forced herself to be calm and said coldly, "That's good. Let's go in." Chen Hao did not say much and directly walked into the cultivation room. Tantai Lian followed him in and changed the topic. "What should we do?" "Summon the phoenix. You don't have to worry about anything else. I'll do it. This method is only temporary. Before you can completely achieve an absolute balance between yin and yang, the phoenix cannot coexist for too long. At that time, I will help you," Chen Hao said. However, he did not dare to say too much. His heart was also very conflicted. He could only temporarily not think about it. He threw it to the back of his mind and took 1 step at a time. Oh, he still hasn't come out after so long. Could it be that Xiaolian and Chen Hao together can't drive Leng Yihan away? Li Yifeng and the other 2 had unknowingly returned to Chen Hao's palace. After a full 2 hours, the palace's restriction was still locked. There were no signs that Chen Hao was going to leave. Tantai Lian also did not come out. It's a unique battle. Let's wait patiently, Yang Fan said. Who will win? Enai Jianpain looked at Li Yifeng and asked. Nonsense. Of course, Chen Hao and Xiaolian will win. If Leng Yihan wins, what will happen? If that's really the case, we will all have to avoid Chen Hao, especially me. It's not a good thing to be too handsome. Elder Wu. Okay. Just as Li Yifeng was feeling smug, a figure strangely appeared in front of the 3 of them. Greetings, Elder Wu. Yang Fan and Enai Jianpain hurriedly bowed. Why are you all outside? Where's Chen Hao? Elder Wu, Chen Hao, Leng Yihan, and Xiaolian are discussing something. We dare not disturb them. Elder Wu, you came at the right time. Leng Yihan? Didn't he leave? Elder Wu was slightly surprised. Left. No, they are clearly in the palace. It's been 8 hours and they still haven't come out. Then you must be mistaken. 6 hours ago, Leng Yihan stepped out of our Zhaixing sect, Elder Wu said. When Leng Yihan left Chen Hao's palace, it was naturally the nameless old man who took him away. But if he left the Zhaixing sect, he could not leave without anyone knowing. First, it was impolite, and second, it was impossible to explain. After all, Lung Yihan's reputation was his alone. It can't be. This. Elder Wu, if that's the case, then Chen Hao and Tantai Lian might be cultivating. We can't disturb them. This. Li Yifeng hurriedly said. Oh. Chen Hao and Tantai Lian are cultivating together? Yes. It should be. Xiaolian went in 2 hours ago. It should be when Lung Yihan secretly left. Good. Kid, you're quite clever. Don't worry. Old man won't disturb them cultivating together. The Phoenix inheritance is nothing. One is a martial genius, and the other is a martial genius. This is the real power. Okay, you three go back. They're sneaking around, but you're still waiting here. Aren't you looking for trouble? If Tantai Lian sees it and doesn't cultivate anymore, what will you do? Go back, go back. Yes. Li Yifeng and the other two had strange expressions on their faces as they hurriedly replied. Then they quickly left. Seeing the three of them leave, Elder Wu revealed a smile on his face. He pointed his finger at the door of the palace. Immediately, there was a flash of light. A secret manual and a jade bottle that was clearly a high-grade medicinal pill merged into the door. This brat didn't even go to collect his reward, and I had to personally send him off. Young people are full of vigor. I have to teach him a lesson someday. Don't just focus on playing and forget about cultivating, Elder Wu muttered to himself. Then he turned into a ray of light and disappeared in front of Chen Hao's palace. Jiaji. Inside the cultivation room, the sky was filled with a sea of fire. Phoenix and Phoenix, two illusory figures, circled and danced above Chen Hao and Tantai Lian. They seemed to be playing, and they let out cheerful cries. Chen Hao and Tantai Lian sat opposite each other with their palms pressed together. Waves of mysterious aura and pure yang energy constantly flowed out from between Chen Hao's brows and quickly merged into between Tantai Lian's brows. This scene had already lasted for 2 hours. Tantai Lian's delicate body trembled violently, and her brows were tightly knitted. She was obviously in extreme pain. On the other hand, Chen Hao was sweating profusely. His handsome face was actually redder than the surrounding flames. His eyes were like 2 torches that stared straight at Tantai Lian, as if he was enduring incomparable torment. Jia, the Phoenix and Phoenix that circled above their heads used their unique language to communicate. Phoenix, Chen Hao's temperament is really firm. He can even withstand this, yes. If only he wasn't so firm, we would never have to be separated. Phoenix, can we think of a way? Let's burn a fire for him and Xiaolian. Don't have such thoughts. The existence in Chen Hao's body said that if we dare to do that, it will definitely destroy our bodies and souls. He can do it. The Azure Dragon and White Tiger are now tamed like little insects. I can escape this sea of suffering and be with you. As for the rest, let's wait for the future. Chen Hao definitely can't do that now. If he really can't endure it, that existence will probably directly cut off this fusion. Then we'll be in trouble. The Phoenix hurriedly said in fear. Oh. Why not use the perfect fusion of yin and yang? That way, regardless of whether it's Chen Hao or Xiaolian, they can both improve again. I don't understand either, but he definitely has a deeper intention for doing this. It's not something we can speculate. In short, it's definitely not a bad thing for Chen Hao. Oh. You can try. Just as the Phoenix and Phoenix were communicating, a voice filled with endless majesty suddenly sounded in the minds of the 2 birds. We wouldn't dare. Don't worry, we definitely won't go against your wishes. I'm asking you to try. Slowly activate it. This is also a kind of training for him. Burn this little girl's clothes first. Burn Chen Hao's too. Just say it's an accident. This kid is very stubborn. Don't say I asked you to do it. The majestic voice said again in an unquestionable tone. Are you serious? Nonsense. Do it. Okay, I'll do it. Jia. Hiss. Suddenly, following the 2 cries of the Phoenix, the sea of fire in the sky suddenly burst into flames with a boom. In an instant, it was unknown how many times more terrifying it was. At the same time, the star-picking robes on Chen Hao and Tantai Lian's bodies, which were said to be impervious to fire and water, directly turned into ashes. Chun Hao, who was full of vigor and vitality, had been holding on to his mind and using the method taught by the mysterious existence through the phoenix. His eyes were open, staring at Tantai Lien. He couldn't close them even if he wanted to. Moreover, he had to stimulate some of his impulses in order to truly complete it. Coupled with the stimulation of the vital yin in Tantai Lien's body, her graceful figure, her beautiful face, and other factors, how painful would it be to endure such a situation? But now, it actually added fuel to the fire. In an instant, Chun Hao's eyes turned red and he almost lost his mind. Chun Hao wanted to close his eyes, but this damned mysterious technique had completely taken control of his eyes, allowing him to clearly see Tantai Lien's naked body. Her sparkling and smooth skin, dazzling snow-white twin peaks, dazzling two bright red spots, slender waist without any excess fat, flat lower abdomen, lush and mysterious area. At this moment, Chun Hao was endlessly tempted, a huge temptation, an almost irresistible temptation. No, absolutely not. Chun Hao crazily roared in his heart, wanting to cut off this endless temptation in his mind, but he couldn't do it. He only felt that his blood was about to burn, his body temperature was rapidly rising, and his breathing became heavier and heavier, like a bellows. Tantai Lien's eyes were also wide open, and she also saw Chun Hao. Fourth update. Begging for monthly votes, recommendation votes. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.